More exclusive Naruto Lemon videos coming out on my Boosty. You can support me by subscribing. Link in description. He was awarded many titles, but she became the only one who saw him as a simple man, with his weaknesses and desires. And she gave him the most precious gift in the world. She gave him her friendship. And he will do anything to make the friendship grow into something more. Chapters 5 to 6. Enjoy watching. Chapter 5 Snake Eyes. Training field near Kagami Uchiha's house. Shursui replaced Itachi and now taught Sasuke the basics of working with the manifested Sharingan of the first stage. Itachi himself sat comfortably under a tree, in the shade, carefully observing what was happening and occasionally giving valuable advice. Naruto lay next to him, her head on his lap, and was diligently reading some kind of scroll with a medical bias. Itachi, with a familiar gesture, took his thick braid and felt it for weak spots. He loved to pull out long, thin golden strands and look through them at the sun. Naruto snorted at him so funny, pouted, letting down her hair and redoing the complex braiding. And this made her look even more like a little fox. He noticed that Sasuke and Shursui had stopped studying and were now standing close to each other and whispering about something. If at the same time they angrily rubbed their hands, they would completely resemble small evil demons. "What are you discussing?" he asked. Techniques. Shursui waved him off. They turned so that their conversation could not be read by lips. "You know," Itachi tugged at a blonde lock of hair. "It seems to me that they are conspiring against us." Naruto looked up from her scroll, looked at the couple, then shrugged. "Quite possible. They will. But if anything happens, I'll stop making Sasuke's favorite pureed tomato soup." It would seem that she spoke very quietly, but Sasuke immediately jumped up. Itachi could barely contain his grin at the sight of Ototo's indignant face. "Naruto, this is blackmail," he shouted. "And extortion," added, after thinking a little. "These are security measures," Uzumaki retorted and stuck her tongue out at her friend. Shursui and Sasuke walked up and almost buried themselves head over heels in Naruto's bag. Like children on the eve of a holiday, in anticipation of gifts and sweets. The girl herself did not pay any attention to the arbitrariness and robbery, once again plunging into the magical world of the scroll. Shursui, chewing a hot sandwich, passing the second one to Itachi, looked over her shoulder. And he choked. "These are notes from Tsunade Senju. Where did you get them from?" Naruto looked up at him in surprise. "What is it?" Itachi's breath caught. What did the restless girl get herself into this time? It was the princess of the Senju clan who at one time insisted on the formation of combat detachments of 3 people, which necessarily included an Irionin. This greatly increased the survivability of shinobi on missions. She even began training young doctors, but was forced to stop due to hostilities. After she left the village, all notes under her authorship immediately went to the Hokage's secret archive. The people who would have access there could be counted on one hand. The Uchiha read the lines. Well, exactly, a detailed, sometimes even tedious, description of the physiology, anatomy of shinobi and the influence of various techniques on it belonged to the pen of Princess Senju. "Naruto, I'm not asking where this scroll came from." Itachi held the twitching girl on his knees. The Uzumaki pouted. "I'm more interested in how he got to you. What's the problem?" Sasuke couldn't stand it anymore, chewing another tomato. In the eyes of his Ototo, Itachi saw the same determination that overcome him. Protect your friend at all costs, protect her, risking everything. "These scrolls are stored in a special archive," Shursui explained. "As far as I remember, in the entire history of the village, at most 15 people could enter there. Most of whom are already dead." "Who?" Ototo immediately became interested. Itachi saw the gears spinning in his brain, giving out ideas on how to save the Jinchuriki from possible reprisals from the authorities. First, second, third Hokage Mito-san, wife of the first, Uchiha Madara, current assistant of the third, 4 of the Hokage's closest bodyguards and the archivist himself. In addition, Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki had access at one time. "So that's why he..." Naruto drawled. Her face lit up, as if she had found the answer. The girl smiled cheerfully. Is there anyone from your clan? Yes, Itachi. Shursui nodded at his friend. At one time, the first Hokage entered into an agreement with Madara Uchiha. If a worthy representative of the clan is born in a generation, he will have blood access to the Holy of Holies. So, for example, my father or I did not receive it. But Itachi, at the age of 7, could walk there as if at home. Great! Naruto and Ototo said in one voice. Itachi felt his cheeks turn slightly red under the admiring glances directed at him. For some unknown reason, the girl's gaze awakened pride in the soul. I wanted to straighten my shoulders and raise my chin. Her reaction was doubly pleasant. But Itachi would not be himself if he did not know how to control himself. He turned his sharp gaze to the Uzumaki. So who is he? Your unknown assistant? The girl sighed. Shiranui Genma, she said. He and several other people always treated me well and helped me. And the other day he came up to me and dragged me to the archive. We checked. I have blood access there. It turns out that my grandmother installed protection there, so she created a loophole for everyone who has even a drop of her blood. And she didn't give a damn about the first decree and installed several Fuin traps there, just for those worthy. To test their strength, to check the choice of the archive. She turned a suspicious glance at Itachi. He sighed heavily, realizing that he would have to part with several more secrets. Your mother, even before pregnancy, began to teach me the basics of Fuin Jutsu. Well, the basics in the understanding of the Uzumaki clan. She taught me to avoid such traps, to penetrate where I shouldn't. Lots of other things. Even the fourth did not know about our lessons. And you were silent? Naruto jumped up. Will you teach me? Well, please, please. Pleading sky-blue eyes stared at him. The girl even folded her arms over her chest, fidgeting impatiently in place. She was ready to snap right now. Naruto, I can teach Sasuke everything I know. Itachi sighed. Because we have, one might say, the same look, the same strength. But I will not undertake to teach Fuin Jutsu to a born Uzumaki, because I might lead you down the wrong path. The girl was upset, although she tried not to show it. She turned away, hiding her eyes, biting her lips. And Itachi received reproachful glances from his brother and friend. He sighed again. Neru. He rarely called her by her short name, and the Uzumaki allowed such freedom only to him. He hugged her, pulled her towards him, and took the Seal Master's diary out of his pocket. A couple of drops of Naruto's blood and the text was revealed to him. Show me what stage you are at now. She opened the right page. Itachi ran his eyes and turned over 5 sheets of paper. And here's what Kushina-san taught me. You will get there in due time. Understand, I can tell you right now everything that she told me. But Kushina-san tried to keep me safe, to make sure that I would not suffer from the inventions of her clan, and could find a way out of the seals. It gave me an advantage in combat, reconnaissance, and espionage. But she didn't make me into the Fuin master you want to become. You are on the right path, and I don't want to knock you down. Understand? The girl was silent for a little longer, then nodded. Yes, I understand. Then she raised her eyes and smiled. But you will tell me about Mom and Dad? Of course. Itachi patted her hair, making her close her eyes happily. And I wouldn't admit to anyone how much her words made my heart lighter. Naruto was the first to whom he explained the motives for his actions. Even Sasuke did without it, accepting everything as it was. And the Uchiha tried not to think about why he made such an exception for her. What secrets are being revealed? Sasuke stretched out on the grass with a satisfied smile. The Uzumaki will set traps, and the Uchiha will avoid them. Harmony, in a word. The whole company laughed together. For some time, the silence was broken only by the singing of birds and friendly chewing. Do you know that there will be a Chunin exam soon? Itachi asked the younger ones. They looked at each other in confusion. No, what is it? A tournament where you will have to show everything you can in order to be awarded a higher rank. Shursui took another rice triangle. As far as I know, Kakashi has already recommended your team, although usually newcomers are not entered into such competitions. Why? Naruto frowned. The mortality rate has increased, Itachi said. This time the exam will be held in Konoha. Guests from other hidden villages and countries will come here. He did not ask the guys to be careful, they are already adults, they themselves understand what's what. But is it really necessary to go through this tournament in order to become a Chunin? Naruto tilted her head. Kagami-san and Itachi himself could be proud of their student. The girl asked unusually correct questions. Not necessarily, Dobe. Sasuke snorted, taking a sip of iced tea. Brother and Shursui did not pass any exams, they were given the rank of Hokage. This means that the exam serves other purposes. Shinobi from other countries are arriving. Naruto joined in the work. Itachi listened carefully to this squabble of the younger ones and was proud of them. So, picking up each other's phrases like hot coals from a hearth, they built their version of events. The logic, quick reactions of Sasuke and the unpredictability of Naruto, which could offer the most incredible, but at the same time possible options. One complemented the other perfectly, and this will be useful to them in the future. Itachi had already thanked the girl more than once for bringing Ototo to training one day. Making them partners has become much easier and more interesting. Just before leaving, he pulled Naruto by the tip of his braid. They fell behind the others. Be doubly careful. No one should know that you are a Jinchuriki. I don't want you to get hurt. The girl smiled. I will act according to the situation, don't worry. We can handle it. Naruto went shopping, stocking up for the week. If Kakashi approved their candidacies for the exam, she would have no time to cook. All her free time would be taken up by training, and she didn't want to switch to instant noodles, like in her distant, hungry childhood. On the way, Sasuke caught up with her, whom Itachi dragged into the dango shop. The elder Uchiha himself immediately handed his wand to Naruto. From his smile, just the raised corners of his lips, my heart trembled strangely. The girl blushed as she accepted the treat. Their fingers touched, Uzumaki twitched. And then she cursed herself. She behaves like the heroine of snotty women's novels. Speaking of heroines, on the way they ran into Sakura, who immediately began shooting her eyes at Sasuke. The Uchiha held on. The Uchiha stood strong. The Uchiha was impenetrable, gritting his teeth under Naruto's quiet chuckles and Itachi's glances full of amusement. The last thing he wanted was to get into such an awkward situation in front of his older brother. And now he didn't know how to get rid of the persistent girl. Imagine you will have such a daughter-in-law. Naruto nodded at the couple walking in front. Sakura grabbed Sasuke's hand like a pincer, chirping something affectionately. Shinigami is merciful, he will not allow this to happen. Itachi rejoiced at the prospects. Naruto giggled into her palm. Don't you really want to walk with someone like that? Itachi looked at his brother in front. I'm going with you. The girl pulled off another skewer. That's not what I'm talking about, Naruto. The young man sighed. I know, she echoed. But I feel good and cozy with you, with Sasuke fun, with Grandpa calm. And I don't need more. But one day you will want children. Itachi frowned subtly. As soon as he imagined how a man's hand hugged the girl's thin waist, how some stranger kissed her and whispered romantic nonsense in her ear, something began to swirl in his chest, huge, slippery, icy. Backbiters who will waste my time, nerves and my sweets. Naruto raised an eyebrow. I'm not mentally ready for this yet. Screams were heard from the side, and the girl hurried there, literally throwing the bags into Itachi's hands. Some guy in a dark suit, with a bandaged package behind his back, was holding Konohamaru, the grandson of the third and one of the best spies of Naruto's intelligence network, by the throat. The boy kicked his legs and was out of breath. His friends were milling around nearby. Moegi was almost crying in despair. A blonde with bushy ponytails and a huge fan looked at all this with a bored look. Let him go. Sasuke quite accurately hit the guy in the back of the head with a stone, diverting attention to himself. The aggressor released the boy, he fell and coughed. He was immediately dragged away by his playmates. And the next moment, the attacker was pinned to a wooden fence with Naruto's kunai. The blades carefully, even delicately, pierced the edges of the clothing, not allowing the guy to move. The blonde reached for the fan, but it was nailed to the same fence by Sasuke's shurikens. Aren't you ashamed? Naruto came closer. They attacked a defenseless child. She noticed the protectors with the sign of Suna. You're not at home, but when you're visiting, you don't behave like that. The little one started first. The guy growled. Naruto looked with interest at the bright purple lines of war paint on his face, but did not notice the presence of any seals. So, just for beauty. I could draw something else. As far as I know, you are the children of the ruler of Suna. Itachi approached them with packages. Naruto narrowed her eyes. So this is what education is like in the ruling family. She sang sarcastically. The Kazekage's offspring jerked as if struck. You! The blonde hissed. Yes, I love you. Better watch your brother. Naruto bared her teeth in a friendly manner. He seems to be stealing your cosmetics. Itachi chuckled and Sasuke chuckled. Konohamaru and his friends laughed. Sakura, as always, did not know what to do. Naruto chose the perfect weapon. If you want the enemy to stop being feared and respected, make fun of him. The ruler's children blushed, turned pale, took a deep breath in their chests, clapped their mouths, but were unable to utter a word. Their efforts were interrupted by a cold voice. Kankuro, Temari! It is time! Hanging upside down from a wide tree branch near the road was a guy with scarlet hair and a large pumpkin over his shoulders. The sand swirled around him with a slight rustle, and the next moment he found himself near his comrades. They turned strangely pale. Naruto frowned. They were clearly afraid of the stranger, to the point of trembling, to the point of panic. The guy turned around, empty emerald eyes looked at the girl. The wind blew away his short bangs and revealed the hieroglyph for love on his forehead. A dark aura emanated from him, insane, almost demonic. Shikaku! Came the incomprehensible answer from inside. But Kyubi refused to explain the rest. I apologize for my brother's behavior, the guy said dryly. There is not a single emotion in the voice. We forgive you. The girl waved her off. Only if possible, please return the kunai to me. She smiled slyly. The named Kankuro fell to the ground like a dust bag, and a wide paw of sand brought Naruto her weapon. Thank you, Datebao. She immediately hid it in her bag, which she never parted with. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. Dog no Gara. The red-haired man introduced himself. Genuine amazement flashed and disappeared in his eyes. Nice to meet you. You came for the exam, right? Yes. Great. We will be there too. She pulled her teammates closer. This is Sasuke, and this is Sakura. She pointed at each. Temari turned pale behind Gaara. Kankuro pointed an impolite finger at Naruto. Are you talking to him? He wheezed. The atmosphere immediately changed, becoming tense again, almost icy. Gaara tensed, Temari reached for the fan. Kankuro turned pale, beads of sweat glistening on his forehead. Itachi lowered the bags to the ground, gently, slowly, demonstrating every movement, walked up to team number 7 and put his arm around Naruto's shoulders, looking straight into Gaara's eyes. Well, yes. As if Naruto didn't understand, she looked at Itachi in surprise, then at Kankuro. Unlike you, I like him. For the first time, Gaara showed any emotion. He looked in amazement at the girl glowing with joy. Uzumaki's smile grew even wider, seemingly extending beyond her cheeks. But she was still sincere, a little naive. Naruto was really happy about meeting new people. The plan came together instantly. There were many more pros than cons. New acquaintances, stories about an unfamiliar country. And you can try to find out what Shikaku is, about which the fox grumbled. The dog regained his former equanimity. He was clearly calculating something. The gaze of green eyes slid over Sasuke, who had gathered up over Itachi's figure, and his hand on the girl's shoulder. He made some decision. And still I was late. Naruto had already turned to the children. Konoha Maru, Moegi, Udon. I have an important task for you. Do you agree? Yes. It sounded friendly. Find out where Kakashi-san is hiding and what he's doing. Eat. The children immediately ran away. Uzumaki picked up the bags, pushed them off Itachi again, and then galloped off to the Cenobites. You have time, right? She grabbed Gaara's hand. Eh? Yes, fine. Let's go to. She dragged him along. Where are you taking Gaara? Temari jumped up. I invite him to lunch. The girl waved her hand. And in return, I want to listen to stories about life in Suna. Never been there. In principle, I have never been anywhere except the land of waves. She informed the already stunned Gaara, who was following her lead. Is she always like this? Temari asked the others suspiciously. The Uchiha brothers answered at the same time, turned around and followed their friend. Yes, Sakura sighed. Let's go. Where? Home to Naruto. Do you really think she will leave you so easily? The kunoichi asked doomedly and led the guests along. Less than half an hour had passed before the whole company settled down in Uzumaki's small, cozy kitchen. Naruto put on her apron and began to prepare a delicious lunch. We need to celebrate our new acquaintance, and it wouldn't hurt to surprise our guests. Itachi stood next to her. She gave him the salad and chopped vegetables. They probably looked amazing from the outside. They habitually complimented each other's movements, picked up the cutlery, silently, at the level of thoughts and glances, passed on the necessary spices. The guests sat on pins and needles. They looked around, expecting an attack. The pressure of Gaara's chakra rose and fell, like waves rushing onto the shore. This made his relatives turn pale and stutter. But Naruto chatted cheerfully and easily, talking about Konoha, about its attractions. It smelled delicious, and gradually their suspicion disappeared. So what is Suna like? Uzumaki asked, placing the plates in front of the guests. I heard there is a lot of sand there. As always, at such moments the necessary words themselves slipped from the tongue. Naruto understood that in one conversation she could not break through the many years of shell that had grown on Gaara. However, I wanted to do it. Something inside told her that he was not what he seemed. That you just need to give him a chance, just believe in him. Our village is located in the middle of the desert. Gaara's gaze became misty. There is an immense sky and clouds that you can reach with your hand. And the sun rises very, very close, burns and bestows its blessing on each new day. And at night the velvet stars shine there. Naruto listened. Gaara may not have liked people, even feared them, but he was truly in love with the desert. His face became so spiritual, it seemed to glow from within when he mentioned sharp rocks, a sandy carpet, and rare oases filled with greenery and small animals. He transformed into a brilliant and slightly crazy artist who painted magical pictures in his soft, quiet voice. The sand was distributed over his body in a thin layer and perfectly shielded him from the attention of censors and other shinobi, and slightly interfered with Naruto's probing of his master. But the girl acted, rather, at the level of instincts, without using any special techniques. She was actively helped by Kyubi, who was also overcome by curiosity. The fox remained mysteriously silent about the reasons for this. You're surprised, Itachi remarked to Kankuro sitting next to him. He quietly cleared his throat, watching with wide eyes his enthusiastically narrating brother, who was devouring lunch. His cheeks were flushed, his eyes sparkled. Gaara has never spoken so much in his life, he whispered. I preferred to run away and meet the sunrises in the desert. We barely found him and returned him home. Why did he run away? Asked Sakura, clearly feeling uncomfortable in such a strange company. You don't need to know this. Temari's sharp response broke the warm atmosphere. The feeling of warmth and trust shattered like fragile crystal. Gaara winced and came to his senses, looking away from Naruto. The girl also seemed to wake up from hypnosis and shook her head. We are opponents, I may have to kill you, the hermit said again indifferently. Why? Naruto answered calmly. All feigned carelessness disappeared, revealing the true Uzumaki to the world. Just because we are rivals does not mean that we are enemies. I don't consider you my enemy, Gaara no dog. She looked straight, penetrating into the very heart. Something dark, heavy, like a large bird hit the window. This is for you, Uzumaki explained. Where did you get the idea? Temari immediately jumped up. There's a plug in every barrel, he can't sit quietly and watch. She needs to intervene in everything, she cares about everything. Because mine have long been accustomed to barriers and just knock. Gaara nodded and headed towards the window. Thank you for lunch. See you in battle. Kankuro and Temari left silently. Sakura also hurried to leave. Sasuke helped clear the plates and wash the dishes. Naruto poured the tea and took out some sweets. You didn't just call him to you, the Uchiha noted. The girl did not take her eyes off the dark surface of the drink. Guys, who is Shikaku? The brothers looked at each other. Itachi took the floor. Shikaku is the name of the one-tailed Bijou, the spirit of the desert. They say he is bloodthirsty, killing everyone on whom his gaze falls. Crazy. Gaara Shikaku, or rather, his Jinchuriki. Naruto took a sip. But he's not bad. I've been scanning it, checking it all this time. Angry, rude, yes, but not bad. There is no darkness in it. That's it. This means that the desert people brought Bijou with them. I wonder what they are counting on. Itachi thought, and caught his friend's meaningful glance. No. No. And no. You won't do this, Naruto. It's too dangerous. The girl saw that her friend was not saying this out of malice. He was worried about her, worried. And he wanted to protect. And at any other time she would have given him such an opportunity. Not in this case. Helping people is always dangerous. She smiled sadly. But I want to try. Perhaps Gaara did not become this way himself, someone brought him to this state. I have to figure it out. And the first step has already been taken, Sasuke noted. Naruto looked down into the cup again. Itachi turned to the window. The company was uneasy at heart. Itachi was going crazy with worry. The restless Uzumaki again found problems on her nine tails. He tried to hide from his emotions at the training ground, to occupy his thoughts with training. The kunai flew straight to the target, touching each other, striking sparks. The man threw them with such force that chips flew from the tree. He couldn't calm down, he couldn't. Just the thought of what the sand demon could do with the cheerful Uzumaki, with this restless light, made my insides freeze. He wanted to grab the girl by the shoulders and shake her so that she would give up her idea. But all he could do was watch from the sidelines. And pray that trouble will bypass the Jinchuriki, so that Shinigami will not turn his gaze on her. And the phrase that Shursui told him sounded in his ears. Ask yourself another question. Why are you so worried about her? Really, why? He whispered to himself. He could deceive others as much as he wanted, telling them that it was all just for Sasuke's sake. But lying to yourself is the last thing. Naruto had long and firmly settled in his soul. He cared about her on an equal basis with his younger brother, if not more. He didn't think about it, letting life take its course. So maybe it's time to think about it. As soon as the 7th team entered the building where the exam was to take place, they heard the sounds of blows. The guy in the green tights flew to the floor from a strong blow from an unfamiliar ninja with a Konoha protector. He was followed by his partner, Tenten. Niji stood aside and calmly watched the beating of his partners. Uzumaki sincerely did not understand his behavior. Can't you help the team? Lee. Naruto rushed forward, helping her friend up. Naruto. The guy beamed. You are participating too. The girl nodded and began to heal the abrasions. Then she turned around to face Sasuke and Sakura, who had approached. To stumble upon the appraising, slightly arrogant gaze of the Uchiha. For which the friend immediately received a sharp elbow in the ribs and looked at Uzumaki indignantly. Guys, meet me, this is my friend, Rock Lee. And these are my friends and teammates, Sasuke and Sakura. Naruto noticed how Lee hovered in front of the kunoichi, looking at her with an adoring gaze. Sasuke raised an eyebrow, Naruto shook her head in response. Rock Lee is an incorrigible optimist if he still hopes for Haruno's favor. Having gotten to know the girl better, Uzumaki felt sincerely sorry for his friend. Hello, Sakura. He smiled. Let's meet. I swear I will protect you all my life. He waited hopefully for an answer. The Uchiha began to look at him with the same hope, having with brilliant speed grasped the opportunity to get rid of the advances of his teammate. Leave me alone! Sakura snapped, turning away. You're chubby! Naruto and Sasuke simultaneously looked at the fit figure in the tight tights. And where did the picky girl find at least 1 extra gram? Uzumaki herself nervously fiddled with the edge of her blue sundress. At one time, she diligently divided her life into spheres and tried to make sure that these spheres did not intersect. Home, assignments, training with Itachi, friendship with Lee, all these are spheres. She was sincerely offended to see such a reaction from her comrades. The girl wanted them to make friends with Lee. After all, he was a great guy, sincere, a little naive and so straightforward. And also an excellent, strong shinobi. She wanted to hit Sakura just for the sad look in her round dark eyes. Someone touched her hand softly. Sasuke looked at her with such a familiar smile, slightly raised lips. She saw the same one on Itachi when she trained with him. The younger Uchiha turned to Lee. Naruto's friends are my friends. He extended his hand. Nice to meet you, Rock Lee. Guy's student immediately forgot about his previous grievances and shook the outstretched limb with pleasure. Naruto was once again amazed at how quickly her friend's mood changed. Me too, Sasuke. I'm sure we will become great rivals and comrades. He shouted. The Uchiha clearly didn't know what to say, but nodded in agreement anyway. The last thing I wanted was to offend Naruto. Someone cleared their throat behind him. The guys saw the same shinobi who beat Lee. And which we have already forgotten about, captured by new acquaintances. Are we disturbing you? One of them inquired sarcastically. No. Sakura raised her chin, clenching her fists militantly. Uzumaki and Uchiha habitually divided responsibilities among themselves. Sasuke examined the situation for unaccounted for illusions, and Naruto focused on the faces of the arrogant guys. They seemed vaguely familiar to her. It's an illusion. The friend nodded at the sign above their head. This is the 2nd floor. Naruto couldn't remember where she had already seen these shinobi. They reminded her of someone. The silence dragged on. The guys began to rant about the importance of the exam, its danger, and the girl mentally went through all the Chunin and Jounin she saw in the village. Finally it dawned on her. She remembered the second meeting with Itachi at the gates of Konoha. Katsuma! She exclaimed, hitting her palm with her fist. The guys twitched strangely. Sorry? Asked one of them, with twin blades behind his back. Katsuma, Naruto said clearly, as if she were explaining to children. Kotetsu, poked at one. And Izumo, in another. Kai, Sasuke chuckled. With a pop, the illusions dissipated, and standing in front of them were Chunin in gray examiner uniforms. And the sign overhead showed the 2nd floor. Well, I told you, Katsuma date Bayo. Naruto was happy. The Chunin blushed and hissed indignantly, but the 7th team no longer listened to them. The Uzumaki in tow dragged them further down the corridor, towards the stairs to the 3rd floor. In the right room they were met a little, unfriendly. Sakura recoiled from the many hostile glances of the shinobi already present there. Sasuke was striking with his imperturbable appearance. Uzumaki honestly suspected that a representative of the Uchiha clan locked in an interrogation room was a global lesson in self-control for anyone. They did not show their emotions even in severe pain. At least that's what Kageme's grandfather said. She found a familiar scarlet head of hair in the crowd and waved. Hello, Gaara. Kankuro, Temari. The piercing gaze and response performed by the 3 hermits did not bother her at all. But he confused the others. They had already become familiar with the terrifying aura of Suna's squad and now looked at the newcomers with caution and bewilderment. And they easily let the girl go ahead. Naruto sat down on the table, threw her braid behind her back, and moved to make room for Sasuke. Sakura was awkwardly stomping behind, scared by the Tsunagenin. Do you know what will happen at the first stage? The Uchiha asked them. If they knew, they still wouldn't say. Temari snorted. So you don't know, the guy concluded. The hermits became gloomy, realizing that they themselves had betrayed their ignorance. Gaara, meanwhile, approached Naruto. He was stopped by a large raven flying into the window. He landed on the girl's lap, gave a deafening cry, opened his impressive beak, and flew off again. Soft wings brushed her hair, as if they had given her a slap on the head, and a black feather remained on her knees. Sasuke nodded contentedly to some of his thoughts. It was like checking off an item on a mental list. Naruto immediately raised her head. He was right. You and Shay are clearly up to something. I don't understand what you're talking about. Sasuke looked innocently, so much so that his friend didn't believe him one bit. Better heed his warning. He's worried. The girl narrowed her eyes suspiciously for a while, but Sasuke remained happy and serene. And she turned away. Her thoughts immediately turned to the young man who sent her the message. Fingers fleetingly, mechanically touched the pen. He showed that he was always there and looked after them. So nice. The feather migrated to the inner pocket of the sundress, to the very heart. Itachi positioned himself on a wide tree branch right in front of the windows of the examination room. Marino Ibiki gave him a warning look, which the Uchiha ignored. You'd think that if he wanted to help Ototo, some pathetic barriers on the windows would stop him. For the same Uzumaki, they are already much more powerful. Uzumaki. If you detach yourself from reality and look at the situation from the outside. Each clan member began to select a worthy bride from the moment the dojutsu awakened. For a certain fee, the Irenans carried out all the tests, including genetics, and made predictions for the future. This is how certain lists of potential brides appeared. Itachi was lucky. At the time the Sharingan awakened, Danzo was intensely interested in it. The father considered it inappropriate for a clan spy to have a vulnerable spot, and did not select candidates. But Sasuke did not escape a similar fate. But not a single kunoichi from his circle made it onto the list. The same Sakura could only be lucky in one case, if Ototo himself chooses her. In this case, the father will reconcile himself and accept his decision, but in a different situation he will not let the girl come close, whose blood could weaken the Uchiha gene pool. The rest belonged to clans, in the common offspring of which their dojutsu could overpower the Sharingan. The father did not include Naruto in the Sasuke list, although he recognized her as the most worthy option. But one should not underestimate the blood of the Master of Seals in her veins. The kunoichi could easily penetrate anywhere, see the lists, and there would be no scandal. She will simply close herself and won't let you in anymore. And Fugake did not want to lose the trust of the last Uzumaki. Despite this, Shursui, when starting conversations about students, carefully hinted at a certain development of events, leading to an answer that Itachi already knew very well. If you look at Naruto through the eyes of the heir of a great clan, she would be an excellent option. The last representative of the main branch of an ancient, once powerful clan, whose blood will refresh and strengthen the dojutsu. Future Ironin, Fuinjutsu master, perhaps even Sannin. But something inside Itachi resisted such a look at the girl. For him, she was a cheerful sunbeam, jumping across the palm of his hand, warm and trusting. And he didn't want to lose her affection. Without her, he will completely freeze. In addition, it would be better for Naruto to choose some non-clan shinobi, so that his blood would not be interrupted by the Uzumaki genome. As her mother did at one time. She received signs of attention from Uncle Itachi, Fugaku's younger brother, and Hisashi Hyuga, the twin brother of the current head of the Byakugan clan. But Kushina-san listened to her heart and chose Minato Namikaze. An orphan without a clan behind him, he could only offer her his hand and heart. And she followed him, turning away from wealth and a prosperous life. Itachi still remembered how their faces lit up when their eyes met. They loved each other even after years of marriage. As a result, Naruto is a purebred Uzumaki, although her gene could not help but take something from her father, bending, to his, coloring. But he could not regard his friend as a piece of meat put up for sale at the market. What is the significance of the genome? Heredity in comparison with a warm smile that warms the heart, a strong hand, intertwined fingers. Itachi saw how Garen no dog looked at her, and he wanted to unleash his call on the boys so that they would peck out his eyes. Even now Sandy did not take his eyes off her. The Uchiha leaned back on the tree trunk and felt the rough, sun-warmed bark. Naruto took the best from her parents. The bright color of his father's hair, his boundless blue eyes of an unusual, slightly curved shape, like his mother's, her delicate facial features. A dazzling smile, boundless loyalty and devotion. It was as if he felt the scent of her hair again, cherry and sea. And the summer sun. I wonder what her sunny warm lips taste like. Itachi hit his head on a tree. What is he thinking about? Since when does he look at his girlfriend like that? Ever since I realized that she had already grown up. There was no point in deceiving yourself. His brilliant mind had long ago realized that Uzumaki was an adult, independent kunoichi. He only realized this right now. Whatever choice Uzumaki makes, whoever she chooses to call her destiny, he will accept any decision she makes. And he will try not to kill that lucky one. The short glance his brother cast at him was both sympathetic and mocking. That's right, Sasuke, sympathize, laugh. Your brother is an idiot. When Naruto suddenly looked out the window, there was no one on the tree branch anymore. The girl shrugged and thoughtlessly stroked the black feather near her heart. She felt someone's gaze. Itachi landed on the branch of a tree growing near Training Ground 44, called the Forest of Death. A second later, Shui appeared next to him. Oh, our little ones have passed the first stage. He rejoiced when he found in the crowd a familiar blonde braid and short black strands sticking out like a hedgehog. But there are too many teams. I heard our interrogation department was conducting the test. He looked questioningly at his brother. Naruto neutralized Ibiki's pressure, and thereby saved the others. Shui looked at the girl carefully. She shrugged her shoulders, looked around several times, but shook her head when Sasuke asked. The bloody habanero nature is becoming more and more evident in her. She was also impatient and fiery. Stop. Itachi leaned forward. Isn't that Uchiha Ren there? And then he stepped back, hiding in illusions because the said guy turned around and glanced at the branches of the trees. Having found nothing, but having made his conclusions, he turned away and again began to listen to Mitarashi Anko, who was diligently intimidating the newcomers. Like all Uchiha, he was black-haired, dark-eyed, with pleasant facial features, but something sharp, inhuman slid into them. The last time Itachi saw him, he wasn't like that. Yes. Shui also leaned forward carefully. But he disappeared 5 months ago. I remember. Even lines of the case flashed before my eyes. His mother and younger brother died of fever in the spring, which is why he managed to awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan. I trained him, but we never managed to develop a single technique. He was sent on a mission to the country of rice fields. Where did he go? In the village founded by Orochimaru. What a lucky coincidence. The friend nodded gloomily, reading the unsaid between the lines. Tell my father about our suspicions. Itachi decided a couple of seconds later. I'm staying to watch our guys. I'll join you. Shui nodded and disappeared into the Shenshin. Itachi looked gloomily at the curtain behind which the genin received the scrolls of heaven and earth. An old philosophy that they decided to make key at this stage. Orochimaru, the snake Sennin. The eternal problem of the Uchiha clan. Several years ago he was expelled for conducting experiments on people. The third discovered this when he visited the serpent's laboratory in the company of Anbu. It's also suspicious he decided to visit his former student at just the right time. The genius fled, abandoning his student, to a previously founded village, which became his refuge. But he did not give up his goals. He dreamed of gaining immortality in order to be able to study all the techniques of the world. And for this he needed a body with Sharingan. Itachi suspected that Orochimaru was specifically waiting for a possible uprising of the clan in order to get some weakened Uchiha. It didn't work out, the clan survived. And since then, the Uchiha on missions began to encounter shinobi with sound protectors. Even Itachi had to fight a few of them. They clearly worked in a gentle mode, trying to capture him alive, so it was not difficult to dodge and win. But we had to be careful. The serpent could use the pretext of an attack on the country and get the guilty into its raking, tenacious paws. By default, no one attacked, and the Uchiha did not leave any direct evidence. Until Rin disappeared 5 months ago. Itachi recalled that the attacks stopped during the same time period. But what did Orochimaru need in the exam? Unless, his gaze fell on his brother. Is Sasuke the new target? But for what, if the scientist got the right body? The brain quickly processed the options, taking into account the specifics of Orochimaru's thinking and behavior. Itachi was not considered a genius for nothing. If Orochimaru took possession of a body with the Mangekyo Sharingan, he would certainly want to try it out. In battles not only with ordinary shinobi, but also with the Uchiha clan. The father closely monitored the younger generation. Children did not leave the clan lands unaccompanied. Even adults took them to the academy. Many studied at home. Adults were even more dangerous. Only Sasuke remained not at home, but not outside Konoha territory either. There will be no one to blame if he perishes in the forest of death. Itachi called a raven, left it to wait for sure sway, and he himself slid like a light shadow inside the training ground. He will not interfere with the exam itself, but he will not let Orochimaru near his brother either. Here. Sasuke handed Naruto the scroll as soon as they entered the forest. She put her hand behind her back. In certain places the braiding was not so tight, the strands moved apart. She sealed the scroll in the ribbon Itachi had given her. It not only served as an excellent storage device, but also held seals excellently. For the umpteenth time, the girl tied a knot for herself as a keepsake, to give something to the older Uchiha. A wild, pain-filled scream or howl echoed through the forest. Sakura squealed and grabbed Sasuke's hand. What is this, Sasuke-kun? Oh, someone has already been devoured. Uzumaki cheerfully shared with her and stomped forward. The best way not to think about fear is anger. We need to give Sakura a chance. As expected, Haruno instantly forgot about her surroundings and began to scold Naruto. You are so heartless. Do you really think that you are the best? Yes, you were always behind in class. You. Naruto didn't listen to her, looking around carefully. Sasuke did the same. Polygon number 44, or Forest of Death. Absolutely everything within the fence was deadly. Giant leeches, sensing body heat and blood flow, attacked in swarms. Insects could lay eggs in a person's spine or drink him dry in a matter of seconds. There was no point even mentioning huge predators. The most beautiful plants here could eat anything within their reach. The sun almost did not penetrate through the thick crowns of tall trees, and fog mixed with darkness swirled between the roots. Only Jonins and Anbu ventured here. The forest was ideal for their training. At one time, Kagami took Sasuke and Naruto to the initial levels of the Forest of Death to show how dangerous wild nature and unfamiliar terrain could be. Uzumaki was afraid to fall asleep for another week. Suspicious rustles were seen everywhere. She heard the greedy, wet smacking of a plant chewing its next unlucky prey. Judging by his face, Sasuke also remembered that time. We have a scroll of earth, we need to get a scroll of heaven. Did you run? The essence of the stage is simple. Each team has one scroll, you need to get a second one and take it away from other shinobi. Thus, half will be eliminated immediately. And you need to do it within 5 days. Come to the tower in the very center of the forest with 2 trophies. He was the first to jump onto the tree. The girls followed him. They rushed forward, keeping an eye on their surroundings. Sakura shuddered nervously at every rustle, squealed, and recoiled from any suspicious twig. You shouldn't be afraid of everything. Naruto didn't turn around. Not all the animals here are dangerous. There are, for example, squirrels, chipmunks, snakes. She suddenly fell on her back and rolled, avoiding the throw of a huge beige snake. She hissed irritably, testing the air with her forked tongue. Coo, what clever kids! A male voice sang behind him. The genin jumped from the tree, turning around in flight. The clearing below provided more space for action. The stranger followed them. Black-haired, with pleasant features, he reminded someone of Naruto. Sasuke wrinkled his forehead, also trying to remember. They were not given time. A blast wave swept across the clearing, and they scattered. Naruto responded with a gust of wind containing small, sharp ice crystals. Not much damage, but what a distraction! Under the guidance of Kagami, she managed to master several techniques of water, which was her second element. First of all, the Uchiha took care of his granddaughter's ability to get water in any situation. After all, it can be carried to an area where there are no sources. Sasuke created fireballs one after another, followed by shurikens, not giving the enemy any respite. He eluded them with truly snake-like agility. Naruto enveloped her kunai in wind, sharpening them even more, and rushed forward. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed how the scaly reptile rushed towards Sakura and Sasuke, who was covering her. Having bounced away from the enemy at a decent distance, she launched wind blades at the snake, putting maximum chakra into them. The scales withstood the pressure. Only small cuts appeared on the sides. But they were enough for the reptile to hiss, forget about its prey and rush after the fleeing, nimble blonde. "Here we are left alone, Sasuke-kun." The enemy licked his lips with his long tongue. Sasuke chuckled, grabbed the kunai more comfortably, and checked the fishing line in the pockets on his belt. It's a pity that during the second stage they were forbidden to take a stock of weapons, only what would fit in the pouch. Although the same Uzumaki probably has a whole arsenal with her. "I know you," he said calmly. "You are Uchiha Rin, my brother's student. Disappeared on one of the missions." Neither father nor Itachi held back information about Orochimaru's plans for their clan. Therefore, Sasuke was almost not surprised when he saw his former ally, the Tokubetsu Jonin, in the crowd of candidates for the title of Chunin. Died and sound. The old snake finally achieved his goal. Then what does he need now? Try out a new body? Orochimaru extended his neck and rushed at him. Sasuke dodged and took out the fishing line. Using a decoy in the form of a clone, he snuck up from behind. He wound circles around the tree, confusing the enemy, dodging his attacks. Thin threads, saturated with his chakra, cut a layer of bark from the branches. And soon Orochimaru found himself pinned to a powerful trunk by a shiny web. Somehow the Sannin managed to dodge and make seals. And horror fell on Sasuke and Sakura. Fear shackled my limbs and did not allow me to move. Pain was everywhere. It hit the nerve endings and blinded the receptors. In his mind, Sasuke understood that he was caught in a genjutsu. It was a trap, but he could not do anything. Orochimaru surpassed him in strength and experience. The chakra supply disappeared, and the enemy easily tore the fishing line. Sasuke saw him slowly heading towards him, but the all-encompassing horror prevented him from thinking and moving. Even breathe. The guy grabbed his throat. From somewhere on the side came a wave of familiar burning flame. Then fingers wrapped around his hand and placed a kunai into it. "Come to your senses, Sasuke team," a native voice whispered in my ear. The Uchiha dodged, plunged the blade into his leg and screamed. From pain. From the relief that came when the genjutsu trap subsided. Uzumaki stood next to him. All covered with some kind of disgusting looking and smelling mucus and terribly happy. Together they brought Sakura to her senses. Haruno immediately put her blade forward. "Where is the snake?" Sasuke asked, following the movements of Orochimaru. He looked at them with curiosity, licking his lips every minute. "Overeat, Datebao." The girl shrugged, unfolding her fan. And she barely managed to shield herself from the throw of another brownish snake. "How many of them does he have?" She was indignant, hitting the reptile's eyes with streams of wind. The snake hissed and tried to strike blindly. Sasuke regretted that someone needed to protect Haruno. She couldn't handle it on her own. With what pleasure he would help Uzumaki. But he was only forced to cover it with fire techniques. "You can't do it alone. What do you suggest?" "I will help." Let's act. Orochimaru raised his eyebrows in surprise and felt a devilish surge of fiery chakra. His opponent changed dramatically, the speed of her movements increased, and when she accidentally turned to him, he saw that her eyes seemed to be bloodshot, her pupils stretched out into thin threads. The cute little scars on her cheeks lengthened, became ragged, sloppy, like a fissure in the solid earth. A demon, he was confronted by a demon. He played with them, sometimes striking, sometimes escaping. Her shadow clones attacked him, throwing kunai in the hope of getting him. The air boiled and melted around. Cat and mouse, demon and snake. Naruto felt the Kyuubi's chakra flowing through her body. Furious merriment mixed with impatient anticipation of battle bubbled in my chest. The fox danced in his cage, moving his paws, his tails puffed up like antennae. This feeling of togetherness was wonderful. The snake tried to grab her with its long tongue, for which it immediately paid. The Uzumaki quickly cut it into pieces, and the air spear deprived the reptile of one eye. I couldn't help but laugh. And in this laughter we heard echoes of Kyuubi's thunderous laughter. The feeling of superiority over the enemy was intoxicating. And most importantly, while the enemy with his hand snake is busy with it, he cannot reach Sasuke and Sakura. The next moment she was engulfed by the slimy tongue of the enemy himself, and the girl was paralyzed. Naruto shuddered internally with disgust, and Sakura's scream was heard from the side. So, this is where the little nine-tailed fox hid. Coo, and you can use his chakra. Interesting. He looked at her like a scientist would look at a butterfly under the glass of his microscope. Violet chakra lights lit up at the ends of his fingers. The tongue slid over the body, lifting the sundress, leaving a wet mark. Good thing she was wearing shorts underneath. Sakura gasped. Sasuke's excitement became more palpable. His chakra fluttered like a candle flame. A sharp blow with his fingers to the stomach, where the seal was located that locked the Kyuubi, the name of some technique, and Naruto arched. She screamed from the sharp pain that swept through her body like a whirlwind. It seemed as if her channels were on fire and were being torn apart. She writhed in the grip of her tongue and screamed, her mind drowning in a sea of information. This did not happen even with shadow cloning. Consciousness slowly slipped away from her, as if someone had carved a thin pattern on her body with a hot blade. Naruto slowly fainted, on the verge of feeling her tongue's grip weaken. Sasuke caught his falling partner and jumped back. Naruto, every touch hurt her. His own head was pounding. It was as if someone had poured sand heated over a fire with a generous hand into his eyes. He got scared, really scared, when his girlfriend screamed. After all, he knew how dangerous the old snake was, and still did not warn Uzumaki. So she got caught. Regret and guilt overwhelmed the mind as soon as one glanced at the unconscious, trembling body that Sakura pulled towards her and wrapped her arms around. Naruto is his first real friend, and he let her down like that, underestimated the danger. Come on, Sasuke-kun, don't you want to take revenge on me for your friend? The snake grinned maliciously. Or maybe you want to get the scroll of heaven? He showed a white scroll. Perhaps you wouldn't want to lose the earth scroll? A dark blue thick roll appeared in the second hand. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. He knew exactly where Naruto hid the scroll. It was impossible to get it without her desire, which means Orochimaru simply rummaged through the girl's pockets and got a similar one. But the Sannin clearly underestimated his genius. Sasuke pulled the fishing line hidden at the very beginning of the fight. Thin threads whistled, grabbed the scroll of heaven, pulled it out of the man's hand and dragged it to its owner. I think we'll make an exchange. The Uchiha smiled subtly. Orochimaru hissed. A wave of horror fell on the guy again, but now he was ready. Two Toma lit up in his eyes against a red background, and the fire dragon technique flew at Orochimaru. And then reinforcements arrived. Itachi's phoenix flowers fell on the Sannin from above. A black flame slowly blossomed and grew within them. The elder brother was angry, very angry. His crows began to fly in the air, their Sharingan burning in their eyes. The greenish cover of Susanoo descended on the genin themselves, from whose chests senbons sprayed towards Orochimaru. None of them hit Itachi or his clones. Sasuke admired the teamwork between his brother and his friend. Shursui knelt down next to him. Sasuke, how are you? What's wrong with Naruto? He used some kind of technique and she lost consciousness. Itachi's crows, meanwhile, surrounded Orochimaru, each turning into shuriken. Sannin barely managed to hide in one of the trees. The next second, the blade stuck where he stood. He half climbed out of the other trunk. So reinforcements have arrived? Geniuses of the Uchiha clan? I can't handle them. Bye. However, I knew what I was getting into when I chose this body. Coo. With a nasty laugh, he dissolved and disappeared. The Sharingan did not detect his presence, but just in case, Itachi did not deactivate the dojutsu. He quickly rushed towards his brother and girlfriend. The greenish glow of their protective equipment was just falling off from them. Naruto could barely breathe, spasms passed through her body every now and then, and she was shaking violently. Medical techniques were of little help. The adrenaline of the fight and the Kyuubi chakra were still splashing in the blood, which blocked any scanning. The whole body seemed to bristle in a defensive reaction. Itachi put his hand on the girl's forehead as if in pain. He immediately pulled his brush away, a helpless expression flashing in his eyes. However, the elder Uchiha quickly pulled himself together. We need to find a place to rest so Naruto can recover. Shursui nodded. I know where to stop. My father showed me a place not far from here. Itachi silently took the girl in his arms, horrified to himself at how light she seemed. It was as if she didn't weigh anything at all. They went to fetch their guide. Sakura was silent, only looking admiringly from one adult to another. She'll be okay, and I-san? Sasuke looked at his friend with concern. Of course. The corners of the lips rose. Itachi tried to convince himself of this, to believe in his own words. It turned out bad. It's Naruto, she won't give up. Sasuke twitched his chin and clenched his fists. It's my fault. He didn't tell her about Orochimaru as soon as he recognized him. Do you think that would help? Shursui turned around for a second. If she knew the truth, she would protect you even more. And giving out information about the enemy during a battle is the most stupid and irrational thing to do. This way he can figure out what you know and take advantage of it. Itachi was silent. He listened to Naruto's hoarse, heavy breathing, pressing her to him with all his might. Just to feel the heartbeat, to know that she is still alive. They were dealing with Orochimaru's accomplices and were almost too late. Perhaps if they had arrived a little earlier, Naruto would not have been hurt. However, Itachi understood that he could not always protect her. Uzumaki is a strong, talented kunoichi, trained by Kagami. She will not be lost. And he and Sasuke must gain real-life experience, the only way they can stand up for themselves. The location Shursui chose was in an inconspicuous clearing east of the central tower. A cozy cave formed by the roots of an old tree, from which there was a wonderful view of the surrounding area. Itachi regretfully laid Naruto down on the grass and ran his fingers through his fluffy hair. The relatives pretended not to notice anything, averting their eyes to the side. And the Uchiha still could not tear himself away from his pale face, covered with abrasions and bruises, his white lips compressed into a thin thread. What did he think then? Sunny and warm? Now they were poisonous and burning. The Kyuubi's chakra splashed out, struggled, and even the genius of the clan could not predict the result. It is time. He finally straightened up. The others immediately joined in. Officially, we had no right to help you. Shursui began to explain the situation, mainly for Sakura. But Orochimaru is not an opponent you could handle. We have already warned Fugaku-san about his presence. And the Hokage? Have you informed the Hokage? Sakura intervened. The three Uchiha exchanged knowing glances. Yes, Sakura, we warned the third. Itachi lied easily. According to his calculations, Mitarashi Anko had already found the bodies and identified the teacher. And the damned seal probably made itself felt. So she will tell Sarutobi everything. Sakura was thrilled. Such a handsome guy knows her name. Ino will be jealous. We will be silent, she said meaningfully and blushed embarrassedly. Well done. Shursui struggled to control his laughter, while Itachi tried to take one last look at Naruto, assessing her condition. Sasuke moved to the side so as not to interfere. A minute later, both shinobi disappeared into the Shunshin. Sasuke sent Sakura to collect brushwood for the fire, while he remained to guard the Uzumaki. It is unlikely that Orochimaru will dare to attack again, because his older brother and Shursui may be hanging around somewhere nearby. He unpacked the sleeping bag and began to undress Naruto, because the torn sundress, covered with mucus, was only good for rags. The black lettering of the tattoo was still visible on his flat stomach. Sasuke leaned towards her and put his ear to hers. Kyubi, if you can hear me, help her. She can't do it alone. A wave of chakra passed through the girl's body. Sasuke took this as an answer and covered her, wrapping her in a blanket like a baby. It's a pity he can't put barriers around the shelter. Fuin has always been bad for him. The friends spent the whole day unconscious. All this time, Sasuke gave her plenty of water and wiped her with a damp cloth. And at night he kept me warm, falling asleep in an embrace with a thick caterpillar consisting of a sleeping bag and Naruto. The girl was freezing and could not warm herself up. On the third day, the Inoshikacho team, another newcomers who graduated from the academy this year, flew into their clearing. Previously, genin were hesitant to participate in the exams immediately after graduation. Sasuke suspected that the Jonin mentors were politely asked to apply to participate so that the heirs of the Konoha clans would mature faster when faced with difficulties. Even Sakura behaves differently, does not comment on the behavior of Sasuke-kun in any way, only silently sparkles with evil eyes at the unconscious Naruto. Following the Konokovites, their opponents jumped out. Sasuke looked at the protectors and sound again. What is this? The Uchiha did not delude himself about his abilities. Only colossal luck allowed him to take the second scroll from Orochimaru. And without the timely support of his brother and friend, the Sannin would simply have killed them, or worse. The whole village heard about his experiments. The best option was to sit in the cave without getting out, but Sakura, seeing her eternal rival battered and wounded, could not pass by. She got out. What, Ino, are you unlucky? The blonde from the Mentalist clan turned around and flashed her blue eyes furiously. For the umpteenth time, Sasuke compared her to Naruto. The girlfriend won, but maybe he was the one who judged biasly? But Uzumaki is brighter, you can feel the soul and life in her. And the sun. Compared to her, Ino seemed faded. Oh, the sound guys were delighted. Still kids! We will have many scrolls. Sasuke realized it was time to get out. We need to protect Naruto until she comes to her senses. He hid the scroll of heaven in the seal, hiding it among the rags of his girlfriend's clothes. It is unlikely that men will climb into slimy rags. You won't wait. He bared his teeth, stepping out into the light. The sun's rays broke through the foliage and fell onto the clearing. Hello? He nodded to his former classmates. Fat man Choji Akimichi crunched his chips. Nara yawned in greeting. How interesting. The strange guy with fur on his clothes grinned like a wolf. Are you planning to defeat us? Where is the third member of your team? Why are you talking to them, Dosu? Another member of the sound team soared. Kill them, take the scrolls, that's all. Choji, he thinks you're fat. Nara suddenly said, yawning. That's what he told me when we were fighting. Akimichi turned purple and threw away the empty packet of chips. And he curled up into a huge ball that rushed towards the sound people. Sasuke. Nara turned to him. Ino sprained her ankle. Will you lure them closer to me? No problem. The Uchiha nodded and rushed towards the enemies. He needs to take his enemies away from his sick friend, but he can't do it together, with Sakura. The kunai crossed with a clang. The guy spat a fiery clot and set the girl's hair on fire. She pounced on him, 1 step, 2, 3, and now her shadow was captured by Shikamaru. Dosa took out some kind of metal device, activated it, and nothing happened. He pulled it, pressed it again and again, but the device did not work. Sasuke turned around. On the threshold of their shelter, Naruto was kneeling and holding unfamiliar seals folded. She was shaking, sweat was rolling down her face, but the girl did not give up. I blocked the air in the holes of his device, she croaked. This won't last long. The girl coughed. Enough for me, someone shouted. Leaf whirlwind. With relief and joy, the Uchiha saw the familiar green tights. Rock Lee scattered his opponents in a matter of seconds. The Sharingan involuntarily copied his actions, the guy took his breath away, the taijutsu techniques were so fast. Lee's team was waiting for him on the branches of a tree. Seeing such a disparity in strength, the sound workers chose to move away. Rock Lee flew up to Naruto with a squirrel sitting on his shoulder. The others also came closer. What with her? Lee asked Sasuke sternly. It seemed to the Uchiha that he was ready to break into his deadly dance again and beat him half to death. It was Naruto herself who stopped him. She straightened up, wrapping herself in a blanket. It's okay, Lee, don't worry. I'm just sick. Hi guys. Ino Shikacho nodded. They responded in kind. How are you doing? Have you got all the scrolls? Yes. Lee yelled joyfully, throwing his fist into the air. We defeated some team that used strange night clones. They spread out like mud. But Niji quickly discovered the fake using his Byakugan, and we defeated them. We too, Ino nodded importantly. I captured the mind of the head of the squad and forced him to hand over the scroll to us. Sakura clenched her fists. Her eternal friend-rival distinguished herself again. And then everyone's stomach began to growl, even the imperturbable Niji blushed slightly. How about something to eat? Naruto went to the cave. Numerous claps were heard from there. She came out already fully dressed, with packages of food in her hands. And then we'll all go to the tower together. Together? Niji raised his eyebrow arrogantly. Sasuke had heard about him. A genius of the Hyuga clan from a side branch, graduating from the academy a year earlier. Might Guy's team. He deserved the latter. Well, yes. The girl shrugged carelessly, untying the knots. Sasuke grinned as he saw how the other's eyes widened and Choji's mouth began to water. We have paired scrolls, so I don't see any reason to fight. If we go as a group, we'll have a better chance of getting there safe and sound. Everyone recognized that she was right. The guys sat down in a circle near the food, no one dared to start first. Either they were afraid of poisoning, or they were embarrassed. Can we really eat this? Fat Akimichi looked with hope. Naruto exchanged surprised glances with her friend. Yes. Great. Bon appetit. He folded his hands and pounced on the food. The rest followed his example. Ino and Sakura vied with each other to offer treats to Sasuke, who no longer knew what to do with such attention. Choji ate both cheeks and did not react to external stimuli. Nara and Niji were also chewing, though with equally sour faces. The brunette Tenten tried to stir up the latter. Naruto leaned against Lee's helpful shoulder, sipping green tea. She still felt weakness in her body, however, it quickly passed under the influence of the Uzumaki's endurance and vitality. That feeling. Orochimaru brought some kind of discord into her seal. The invisible chains that ran along her body changed their thickness and color, creating a slightly different pattern. The body reacted badly because the technique remained the same for many years. The fox said that he did not feel anything catastrophic. It just became easier for him to get into the outside world. The cage began to let him through not only in moments of Naruto's emotional instability. If he still hated Jinchuriki, it would worry the girl, but otherwise. At least Kurama won't be bored. Thank you for the food. Someone shook her shoulder. Naruto opened her eyes. And how did she manage to fall asleep? Choji stood in front of her with a slightly guilty expression on his face. Despite this, I am very pleased. As they say, a well-fed Akimichi is a happy Akimichi. Only we ate everything, he explained. Speak for yourself. Ino immediately growled. I chewed more than the rest combined. Not scary. Naruto yawned. I still don't want to eat. Akimichi smiled broadly, and the girl, stretching and yawning, began collecting scarves and package boxes. Do you still want to sleep? Sakura was indignant. You've already slept for a day. Have a conscience, Uzumaki! Sakura. The girl yawned soulfully again. Envy is a bad feeling. Don't you have your own doctor? Shikamaru asked while Naruto was cleaning up signs of people in the cave. Sasuke did the same in the clearing. Yes. The Uchiha nodded. And this is her. He pointed with his chin towards the shelter. The whole friendly crowd went to the tower. Fortunately, they met no rivals, they only scared away a flock of birds and a group of imposing squirrels, similar to the one that was sitting on Lee's shoulder. Rock Lee is back to his old ways again. In the first half hour, making sure that Sasuke was ensuring Naruto, he began sending loving glances to Sakura. The kunoichi shuddered, shivered and huddled closer to the powerful figure of Akimichi, who was the only one who did not understand what was happening. The others didn't interfere. Tenten rolled her eyes doomedly, Neji glared at Sasuke, wondering what kind of opponent he was. Nara yawned heartily, competing with the cheerful but exhausted Naruto. So far they had a solid draw. Ino chuckled and shot her eyes at Sasuke. And he began to ask Rock Lee about his victories and completed missions, thereby arranging unobtrusive advertising. And he was not stopped by the blows of Naruto's sharp elbow to the ribs. Rock Lee glowed with the interest of his rival and comrade, shouted throughout the forest, proud of his success. Aren't you ashamed, Datebao? Naruto asked as they walked out to the tower. Friends slowly fell behind. Lee is a good guy. And he considers you his friend. Don't get your hopes up if this isn't the case. She was worried about the open rock, who was so easy to offend. Naruto. Sasuke stopped. I consider Rock Lee a good comrade and a pretty strong shinobi. And it's not me, but him who constantly reassures me. I still hope he takes Sakura for himself. Naruto looked straight into her eyes and nodded to herself. And she laughed merrily. So they approached the tower, the heart of the Forest of Death. Chapter 6 Sandstorm. They easily opened the sealed doors and found themselves in a large empty room. On the opposite wall hung a large scroll with writing. The genins came closer. If you want the power of heaven, let your mind soar. If you lack earth, train your body, be ready to fight. When heaven and earth unite, they will guide you forever. This is our secret, our eternal motto. And what does it mean? Ino and Sakura asked at the same time, glared at each other displeasedly, but did not argue. They wanted to know the answer even more. And Naruto seemed to find herself back in a darkened living room that smelled of dry herbs. Kagami Uchiha, closing his eyes in pleasure, savored the exquisite tea in small sips. He taught her etiquette and various types of tea ceremonies, from a simple tea party between friends to almost an entire ritual performed at a meeting of the heads of the hidden villages or hostile clans. The instructions made my teeth ache, my muscles ached, forced to stay in one position for a long time. But everyone was rewarded by philosophical conversations, which grandfather explained to her in a simple language that everyone could understand. So he taught her to weave verbal lace on her own. He wanted her to become the Haim of her clan, even if it had been destroyed long ago. Nothing would stop her from reviving the Uzumaki later. On the tongue there is a bitter taste of the drink, in the memory there is twilight and the smell of herbs. The mind of a shinobi is heaven. A soft half-smile. Discolored but no less valuable words of the ancient dialect flowed smoothly from the tongue. His body is the earth. Only by overcoming the doubts of the soul does a true shinobi understand whether he wants to fly up or sink into the earth's firmament. Uzumaki! Why are you smiling? Haruno interrupted her thoughts. Naruto opened her eyes and woke up. In general, Sakura, the meaning of the instruction is that heaven is our mind, earth is our body. If you don't have the brains, but you have the physique, you have to try harder to make up for the deficiency. If you have brains, but no abilities, go ahead, train your body. Something like that, Datebao. But now we can see what's in these scrolls? Asked Ino. Yes, Uzumaki, open up. Sakura supported her. I won't even think about it. Naruto denied. You never know what's there. We were told to just come and bring the scrolls with us, which we did. They didn't say anything about the rest. But sitting here for almost another day. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. Naruto sighed heavily, a subtle movement of her hand, and now the scrolls were in her hands. She tore both of them at once and threw them away. Smoke poured out from the cross-paper ribbons, through which a human figure could be seen. Yumino Irika himself. The teacher looked around in surprise at the company that opened up to him. He did not expect to see almost the entire academy graduation plus the previous one together. Sasuke nodded to Naruto. In this situation, the stage was supposed to identify those who would be able to complete the mission, no matter what. If someone broke the rules, the Chunin that appeared would easily deal with him. Meanwhile, Irika looked at his watch, slammed the lid shut and smiled at his students. I congratulate you, you have passed the second stage of the exam. And the rest, Teacher Irika? Sakura couldn't help but ask. The rest either came before you or died. Many did not follow the rules of the stage. He called several mentors, whose shanshin moved them into a huge hall. At one end there was a small dais on which the Hokage and the mentors of all the passing teams were currently standing. Behind them is a statue, huge hands folded in a simple seal, and the symbolism of the land of fire. The third Hokage stepped forward. Line up, he said loudly. The genin quickly stretched out and straightened up, like real, adult shinobi. Naruto looked around the room, listening out of the corner of her ear to the Hokage's speech. Still, he won't say anything new, not for him and Sasuke, for example. A mini-war as the goal of the exam, of course. This is targeted espionage, allowing you to find out the details of the techniques of a possible enemy. Like I know that we both can. But the news about the qualifying tests amazed everyone. As far as Uzumaki knew, they had not been held for the last years, 5, if her memory serves her correctly, Datebao. Back then, ninjas were tested in larger numbers, but then either the exams were made more difficult, or the preparation came to naught. In general, there was no need for intermediate tests. Up to this day, Ino was indignant that they would not be allowed to rest. The little Haim of her clan is not used to such stress, a mentalist, in a word. They are more mentally strong. But Sakura did not dare to argue openly, although it was clear from her eyes that she did not like it. But Naruto was offended. It seemed like I was expecting something like this. I knew that they wouldn't be led ahead so easily, but still, it's a shame. They tried so hard, were in such a hurry, and then. The judge generously invited those who were sick or unsure of their abilities to leave the line. Moreover, they were no longer obliged to stick together as a team in order to advance further. The third stage is single matches. Only Kabuto, the leaf ninja with whom they had a great chat after the written exam, left. Mitarashi Anko, who was present, watched him with a suspicious look, rubbing her left shoulder. If Naruto had it his way, she would have taken Gekko Hate himself by the hand to the ironing building. Judging by his cough and skin tone, he has advanced damage to the lung tissue. Either lead dust, or simply heavy metals, or extensive poisoning. It was difficult to tell from where she stood. We could do a couple of scans, a general blood test, maybe some urine, saliva, a chakra sample, a couple of hairs. Naruto! Sasuke tugged at her hand. Why are you frozen? All of us have already left. Naruto shuddered and looked around. It turns out that while she was closely examining the judge, the contenders were already climbing the stairs to the narrow balconies of the second floor, making room for fights. The judge looked at her warily, covered himself with the tablet as a shield, and generally would have planned to run away, if not for the person of the Hokage on the other side. Naruto giggled. All men are like that. Like going into battle, courage overflows, just put a basin out. But as soon as there is a small scratch that needs to be shown to a professional, they are almost in a comatose state. What are you doing? Asked a friend. I want to conduct a medical examination of our judge, Uzumaki whispered in response. Sensing something was wrong, Hyde's back twitched expressively. Sasuke looked at his friend with pity and touched his forehead. I've completely learned it, poor thing. He shook his head. I'll bail you on my brother so that he can take care of your health, otherwise they'll conduct an examination on you. Yeah, you! Swung at Naruto's grinning friend. I just. She twirled her brush in the air. Ironing, Sasuke said. And it sounded like a diagnosis. A friend was called to fight first. The opponent is from Kabuto's team. Naruto bit her lip. Sasuke fought with Orochimaru, gave his all, and then did not sleep for almost 3 days while she was sick. He looked after her, guarded her, protected her and Sakura from danger. He remained vigilant almost constantly. The use of the new Sharingan plus maintaining the body in a tense state could not help but take its toll on him. And even though Sasuke would never show his weaknesses, even if his gaze was firm and self-confident, she knew how tired he was. I saw shadows under my eyes, faint trembling of my hands. In battle this could work against him. Cover me, she whispered to Sakura. And she ran across Sasuke while he was going down the stairs, threw herself on his neck, pushing him towards the railing. She pressed her whole body. I heard his shocked sigh, saw the stunned faces of those present, the open beak of a black bird, previously unnoticed. At the moment she had no time for this, she had too little time left. Sasuke, you won't lose! She screamed loudly. I believe in you, Datebao. She shouted something else, just as life-affirming, batted her eyelashes, made big, naive eyes, which from her dirty, exhausted, beaten carcass probably looked terrible. And medical chakra flowed from his hands into Sasuke's body, patching his body, removing bruises, healing cuts. It's good that my friend managed without internal injuries. They can't be healed that easily. She slipped a couple of pills of her own making into his palm. Sakura stood with her hands on her hips, snorting angrily, trying to tear away the arrogant blonde fool. In general, I closed it as best I could. The performance was designed for those around him. The dense chakra of the Kyuubi, oozing from Orochimaru's loose seal, perfectly masked all of the Uzumaki's actions. Although it will take a few more days before the body gets used to the new type of cell and regains its previous energy control. The charge of vivacity won't last long, Uzumaki whispered before releasing her friend from the hug. He nodded, and for a moment his eyes lost their impenetrability. They glowed with warm gratitude, the corners of their lips turned up in Naruto's favorite smile. He nodded and went downstairs. And the girl, exhausted, sank to the floor near the wall. Now she had no doubt, Sasuke would win. Sakura sat down next to him. Can you patch me up the same way? She whispered, tracking the judges and mentors. Of all the mentors, the one that bothered her the most was Kakashi with his all-seeing Sharingan. But he was rooting for Sasuke and pretended that the girls on his team didn't exist at all. Naruto lay down on her shoulder and grabbed the kunoichi's hand. She tensed, ready to push away, but Uzumaki grabbed tightly. What's there in the arena? I don't have the strength to get up, she complained, hugging her partner. She began to tell her how great Sasuke was, while Naruto treated her. The chakra reserve was completely restored. Kyuubi deigned to generously help, waving his 9 tails goodbye. When Sasuke's opponent flew up to the very ceiling, sent by a powerful kick from the Uchiha, Sakura jumped up, rushed forward, and began to actively support her chosen one. And Shikamaru and Nara slowly approached Naruto. Shall I sit here? I'm tired. The guy yawned heartily and settled down next to him. Naruto began to treat him, trying to prevent the greenish glow from being caught by observers. The rules prohibited conspiracies, and rivals helping each other. Every man for himself, everyone must demonstrate all his personal skills and abilities. But Uzumaki could not leave her comrades without support. Sasuke won by deftly knocking his opponent out of the air. Naruto recognized the elements of the leaf vortex that Lee was performing. So, I copied it after all, damn it. Once again, he leads in their head-to-head competition. The girl smiled against her will and caught the same sly look in the black eyes of Sasuke, who had returned. Shino was the next to win. His opponent was the sound shinobi. Naruto even felt moral satisfaction when Orochimaru's subordinate was carried away by the Irionin. Although I felt sorry for the guy, the beetles clogged the outlet holes of the pipes in his hands, and the air, unable to leave the body, simply exploded the muscles, meat and skin, thereby depriving him of the ability to move. She shuddered as soon as she heard Hyuga's conclusion about Shino's symbiosis with beetles. Unlike other girls, Naruto was calm about mice, even stroking them, snakes and slugs, but the bugs caused the brave Kunoichi to squeal, which caused the Uchiha who usually visited her to go deaf. Suna showed a bad result, although he cast a gloomy look at Naruto. Apparently, he remembered her remark about women's cosmetics on their faces. However, Sasuke stood nearby, whom the girl was actively restoring after the fight, and Kankuro did not dare say anything. And the admiring look of the lively girl warmed his heart, at least his look became kinder. The cold water from the tap in the restroom refreshed my face and washed away dirt and fatigue. Naruto habitually circulated chakra throughout her body. Of course, such an exercise was not a panacea for all ills, but in emergency cases, when it was not possible to get to a contrast shower or fresh cold milk, it was excellent invigorating. She rebraided her braid, hid all her work and seals inside Itachi's ribbon, when the flapping of wings was heard overhead. The girl extended her hand, and a huge raven with scarlet eyes gently landed on her fingers. He moved his paws carefully, so as not to hurt him with his impressive claws, and looked inquisitively. "Your brother won, did you see?" Naruto smiled. "And also, I treated him then, and did not hug him. Although I don't know why I make excuses to you. I just know I need to say it." The raven croaked quietly, and rubbed his beak against his tender cheek. "We haven't seen each other for just a couple of days, but I already miss you." Thin fingers ran over the hard black feathers. It was always surprising with what precision Itachi executed his clones, almost indistinguishable from the real ones. And his call was appropriate, although many considered those crows to be clones too, which the elder Uchiha brazenly took advantage of. I looked at Orochimaru's snakes and thought, maybe I should get a little animal too? The raven seemed to laugh. He opened his beak and hit it with all his might at a beetle crawling past. "Well, no, Datebeo." Naruto shuddered. "No beetles, caterpillars or cockroaches, you know I can't stand them." The hoarse croak sounded almost like laughter. There was a knock on the door. "Fly." Naruto flipped the bird. "I will win, no doubt about it. I never give up." The bird gently brushed its wing over its hair and disappeared into the shadows. Naruto opened the door. Sakura hesitated on the threshold. "Sorry, you probably want to wash your face too." "I am already leaving." "No!" Haruno slammed the door and leaned against it. She stood, clenched her fists, nervously bit her lips, and her eyes were frozen with a doomed understanding of what was happening. Probably for the first time in her life, Sakura stopped being a capricious girl and finally realized that the life of a shinobi is not the romantic nonsense about adventures described in Jiraiya's first books. "I'm afraid," she said quietly. Naruto choked on the water she poured herself a drink. "I'm afraid," Haruno repeated, without raising her head. "I thought my chakra control would give me an advantage, but everyone here, even you, has excellent control of your energy. And I have nothing more to offer." "Oh?" Uzumaki didn't know what to say. She was used to seeing Sakura as the third member of the team, preventing her and Sasuke from working as a duet. She was used to getting her out of trouble, using hints and provocations to force her to look for information, to teach her what was really necessary and useful. But the truth was that Sakura is also a person, with her own dreams and aspirations. She saw the world of shinobi in the color of her hair, did not understand the whole truth, and when faced with it, she could not cope alone. Due to her character and morbid infatuation, Sasuke lost her only true friend, Ino, who did not pay attention to her family, pedigree and skills, and her team. Both Sasuke and Naruto would prefer that Haruno be pushed into a hospital or work at the same school, but not brutally broken on the battlefield. "I don't want Sasuke-kun to see me weak." My shoulders dropped. "I want him to understand that I am worthy of him." However, since there is no other way out, since Haruno has already come so far. You are strong, Sakura-chan. A sincere, bright smile. Naruto patted Sakura's head. You may not have outstanding abilities like Sasuke or Neji, but you are strong in spirit, persistent and tenacious. You can handle it, you'll see. The main thing is to believe in yourself. Do not give up. From her words, the girl's confidence grew stronger. She straightened her shoulders. I won't give up. She raised her chin proudly. You'll see, Sasuke-kun will be mine. A moment of weakness passed, Sakura nodded sharply and left, and Naruto grinned. Does Sasuke himself know? The irony of fate brought Sakura and Ino together in a duel. Former girlfriends, constantly snapping, showed their skills in taijutsu and kunai handling. They also argued about a date with Sasuke. Gloomy, calm as a rock, the Uchiha quietly asked his friend for political asylum out of the corner of his mouth. When Ino sacrificed her hair to weave a chakra-filled snare, Naruto shivered, involuntarily stroking her thick braid. She would not have been able to do that, and with all the seals that were hidden in the golden strands, with the amount of chakra that she had swelled into them, such a decision would become extremely life-threatening. Sakura screamed, screaming furiously at Ino, pushing it out of her head. This is the strength of Sakura's spirit, Kakashi said proudly. This is a split personality, Uzumaki corrected him. Are? The Uchiha and Hatake turned to her equally questioningly. Naruto sighed heavily. It's hard to be an ironin in a militant team. Sakura has a second personality, more courageous, arrogant, decisive. Most likely it was formed as a result of the suppression of certain aspects of character and temperament, starting from early childhood. Forced to hide parts of her nature, Sakura's mind found an outlet of sorts. The reason for this could be either family upbringing or personal motives. I saw these motives. Sasuke shuddered. Naruto giggled. Well, yes, Sakura's mother is punchy, active, her daughter is just like her, a small copy. I felt sincerely sorry for the unknown father of the Haruno family. And Sasuke, as a potential groom, too. How long have you known this? Hatake asked. I became interested at the academy when I noticed how her mood changed dramatically, and the jumps were big, from one extreme to another. I don't belittle her merits, but I also know about her shortcomings. Naruto snapped and turned away, refusing to discuss this issue further. Instead, she gave her unconscious friends a restorative infusion she had begged from the Irenans to drink and lubricated the wounds they received. She can't spend all her chakra, otherwise she won't have enough for her own fight. But the fight between Temari and Tenten attracted all her attention. If only because the Kazekage's daughter used Tenzin, just like Naruto herself. What do you say? Sasuke turned to her, nodding at the fan. Despite the fact that the art of Tessenjutsu itself was almost lost, there were many types of battle fans in the world. Some craftsmen were specifically engaged only in their manufacture. Although the art of combat itself was lost and forgotten every year, only pitiful basics remained of it. Today's fighters could not do a third of what the masters of the past did. Naruto was lucky, his grandmother left her notes. Without them, the girl would never have managed anything. Temari's fan radiated chakra for several meters. A trained eye identified a base made of chakra-conducting metal and fabric, wings, stitched with a special thread. Of course, an expensive toy, dangerous. Even in the folded state, channeling just a little chakra, the kunoichi could reflect Tenten's weapon. And it doesn't hold a candle to the work of the masters of Yuzushiogakure. They created only one fan for one person, sealing his blood, chakra, life itself. Tenzin ceased to be just a weapon, he became a friend, brother, comrade in arms. He was treated like a living being. The Uzumaki, including my grandmother, considered their fans to be animated, endowed with a special character and temperament, and gave them names. Sometimes Naruto thought she could feel the joyful trembling of her Tenzin when she was about to fight Itachi. Or in childhood, when she was cold and scared in summer thunderstorms, he became warm. Only good dreams always came to her with him. Tessenjutsu performed by Uzumaki turned into a whole philosophy, a teaching about living in harmony with one's fan. One red-haired demon with a fan in his hands on the battlefield was worth an entire squad. Because he was able not only to control the wind, but also to kill in a tough contact fight, reflect genjutsu or use other elements. And also seal other weapons, prisoners, maps, blow up. Lots of other things. And all this with the help of Tessenjutsu. It's not a bad job, but it won't last. The girl shook her head. Out of the corner of my eye I noticed how the hermits listened to her. This fan has a simple fabric base, processed rather than specially made material. He has his own, threshold, date bao. That is, he can only accept a certain amount of chakra. As long as Temari is still a teenager, that's good. But the reserve can increase by 12% to 20 years, and by another 3 or 4 to 25. That is, she will have to order fans at least 2 more times. In this case, it is worth taking into account the wear and tear of the material. However, these are not the legendary Sannin cloaks that they receive in the summoning worlds. Are you saying that, yes, the Uzumaki made their tessens from exactly this material, so one fan followed its owner all his life? Naruto affectionately briefly touched the seal in which her Ayakashi was hidden. That's what her grandmother called him. Dark, with deep scarlet veins, it obeyed her perfectly. Later, after reading theory on Tessenjutsu, Naruto learned that her grandmother had never used it. She sealed the fan in advance for the blood of her descendants, no matter what generation. If you are worthy, the Ayakashi will obey you. As rebellious as the demons. And just as faithful, if you can gain his trust. Tenten flew up to the very ceiling, long scrolls curled around her in a wondrous dance. She took out one weapon after another and threw it at her opponent, but she, easily intercepting the fan, brushed them off. Tenten grinned and pulled the previously invisible strings. The weapon flew towards her, hanging over the desert like a black, heavy cloud. Temari opened her fan completely. 3 moons! She grinned. A stream of wind, soaked through with chakra, blew Tenten away and threw her to the very edge of the field. And the Kazekage's daughter disappeared. To appear behind your opponent, fly over her head on a straightened tessen, like a huge bat. With a bloodthirsty grin, Temari jumped to the floor and waved her fan. Cutting wind technique. No! Uzumaki's ringing voice rang over the arena. Naruto looked with wide eyes at the activation of the ancient technique. If this is what she thinks, there will be nothing left of Tenten. She rushed forward onto the railing. Sasuke barely managed to grab her by the belt. We have to stop her. This technique will kill Tenten. We need to save her. She struggled, but the Uchiha held her tightly, pressed her to him, hypnotizing with his black eyes. And in these pools, Naruto saw herself, pale, frightened, with horror written on her face. The others did not understand why she was so alarmed. Well, of course, they didn't know. It's too late. Nothing can be done, Dobe. The whirlwind picked up Tenten, spun her, and lifted her to the very ceiling. The girl was gasping for breath, her mouth open. She scratched her throat, trying to catch at least a drop of oxygen. Small scratches appeared on her shoulders, thighs, and chest, from which blood oozed. Relief washed over Naruto, and she slid to the floor, still supported by her friend's arms. For the umpteenth time, Tessenjutsu played a bad joke on her. She forgot that all the treasures of knowledge of this science were buried along with the whirlpool. And when I heard the name, I was afraid that Suna had become aware of it from somewhere. The terrible Uzumaki fighting technique that only they used and which their enemies feared. The glory was carried through the centuries, the name was preserved, but the essence itself was lost in human memory. Why are you so scared? Sakura asked, frowning. Rock Lee silently handed over a glass of water. Cutting wind, a technique that cuts the enemy into uneven pieces. And it doesn't matter who is in front of her, the wind will not stop until the invested chakra runs out, or until the person loses his pulse. The latter, by the way, happened more often. Now the others had already turned pale, imagining what could have happened to Tenten if Temari had known such a technique. The Kazekage's daughter just grinned widely. I heard about it, so I decided to study it. The fan folded with a click. True, I didn't think that I would make such a mistake in the name. Rock Lee couldn't stand it. He jumped down and took his partner. How can you? Do you really have no heart at all? Temari came almost close, leaned close to the guy's ear. No, while exhaling. And she jumped onto the balcony with her brothers. Lee clenched his fists. I'll show you later. I will take revenge on you for Tenten. I will show you. I will win against you in a fair fight. Guy landed nearby and put his hand on the student's shoulder. And you better be careful, this guy is incredibly strong. Together, Master Tai jumped onto the balcony again. Rock Lee did not take his eyes off the stretcher on which Tenten lay. You'll watch it, Naruto? The girl raised her eyebrows in surprise. I'm not a doctor, Lee. The Iranians from the hospital know better what to do. Rock looked her straight in the eyes, openly, seriously. I don't trust them, but I don't trust you. And I'll help you get past the guards. He put his hand on Sasuke's friend's shoulder. Sing yourselves already, Date Bayo. She narrowed her eyes, to which the Uchiha chuckled, and Lee showed his thumb, realizing that the girl agreed. Extortionists, she concluded heavily. Shikamaru showed how laziness and genius can be perfectly combined in one organism. Naruto gloated, rubbing her paws contentedly. To have as your subordinate a man who bangs his head against walls is shameful, Orochimaru, very much so. The next fight was hers. The opponent turned out to be Inuzuka Kiba. Well, not the worst choice, it could have gone to Niji or Gaara with a demon inside. It's unlikely that the arena is designed to find out which of the tailed animals is the coolest. Naruto, good luck. You will win, Rock Lee yelled. Don't let us down, Dobe. Sasuke's eyes flashed cheerfully. Problematic woman, Shikamaru said and waved his hand at her. Naruto giggled as she walked downstairs. Come on, Naruto, show him! Sakura screamed. Kiba bared his teeth, sticking out of his jacket, and Inuzuka's snow-white dog, Akamaru, growled thinly. What can Konoha's main loser show? He chuckled. You will lose. You can't wait, Date Bayo. The judge gave the go-ahead. Kiba immediately fell to the ground, grew claws and rushed forward. His silhouette seemed to blur, dissolve, he was so fast. But what does this mean for a person who regularly fights with the genius of the Uchiha clan, and more than one? Naruto jumped high up, tucked her legs under her, letting the blow pass underneath her. Her clone had already landed on the floor and stood on the kunai driven into the wall. Kiba growled and threw smoke bombs at the clone. A purple fog enveloped the fragile fair-haired figure. Only now did Naruto notice how small she seemed. Is it really not growing at all? Together with her pet, the opponent hoped to beat her in a smoke screen while she was disoriented, but the clone dissipated after the first blow. It's time to act before the veil is finally lifted. Sasuke often joked that her clothes and hairstyle contained an entire arsenal of shinobi. He hasn't looked at the backpack yet. Naruto pulled out several bottles of perfume from the many pockets of her dress. Cheap, strong-smelling, she grabbed them for a diversion back in the forest of death. She created several clones and covered them with a henge of mice. Ino and Sakura squealed as fragrant mice with small bottles in their paws splashed from her feet in all directions. They had to cover as many places in the arena as possible. The strength of the clan of dog lovers was their keen sense of smell, but it could also become their weak spot if you approached sabotage skillfully. Meanwhile, the smoke screen had faded, and Kiba began to look around. Naruto jumped to him, created a dozen clones at once, which the enemy began to methodically destroy, trying to get to the real one. And the girl took out a fan from the seals. Temari's convulsive sigh became her reward. Naruto knew what the desert woman was seeing. At that time, a man with an improved metal genome was in the service of the Uzumaki clan. He could germinate it, mix it with other materials, be it stone or wood, or fabric. Such work was incredibly expensive, but who, if not the seal masters, had the money? Dark wings with scarlet streaks, metallic sandine fabric, flexible metal. Therefore, the fan could bend like fabric and hit the same senbons like steel. The crowning achievement of the masters of Uzushio Gakure, a formidable military weapon with a cutting edge and many seals across its entire surface. And the fabric itself perfectly conducted chakra, absorbed it, and could accumulate it. It was not in vain that Grandma spent 6 months on its improvement. She wanted to send her daughter the support she needed in Konoha. It's a pity that my mother did not have the opportunity to fully appreciate her gift, since she did not choose Tessenjutsu. On dark wings with scarlet streaks is the Uzumaki-mon, so rarely seen on weapons these days. Do you think you scared me by taking out a fan, like that girl from the sand? Kiba grinned. Akamaru became a complete copy of him, and 2 gray drills screwed into the air, heading towards her. Uzumaki bent over, covering herself with a fan, walked sideways between them and sent after them several air fists, dense balls of air hitting pressure points. There was a howl, and in between she received information from the missing clones that the perfume had been sprayed. A few strokes of the Tessen, and now a sugary sweet aroma floats over the arena. Kiba stood up with difficulty and pinched his nose. Are you kidding me, Uzumaki? He howled. You fight me with feminine things. Beauty is a terrible power, Datebao. Naruto giggled. And she added a little more quietly. And the more beautiful, the more terrible. Again a smoke screen, which is dispersed by Ayakashi. The twisted dance of the kunoichi and Tessen sent thin streams of air at the enemy, whipping along the sides of the dog and man. Neither combat pills nor shuriken attacks helped. Naruto fought them off and continued her dance. The air whip is almost a childish technique of the Tessenjutsu school, but there is no need to demonstrate all your skills. She already lit up like a fan. She could not help but offend Temari, who imagined herself to be better than everyone else. She wanted, in a childish way, to take revenge for Tenten, who tried her best. The beaten Kiba could not even move. Akamaru whined pitifully, covering his nose with his paw. The Irionans put them in the restroom and went to get medicine. Naruto quietly approached her former rivals. The Inuzuka opened one eye and shaded the puppy lying on his chest with the same hand. What do you want? He growled dangerously. Many would want to finish what they started in the arena if their opponent survived. Here. Naruto thrust a small bottle under his nose. What is this? Painkiller. From them. She pointed with her chin in the direction where the white overalls had gone. You won't get much from them. They believe that a shinobi should feel the pain of his wounds. So he will take care of himself and try not to end up in the hospital. Kiba nodded and downed half the bottle in one gulp. Can dogs drink this? Naruto thought about it, remembering the ingredients. It seems that she did not use anything deadly, and it is unlikely that Akamaru will become ill from the tansy and arnica extract. I guess it's possible. She shrugged. There are simple substances there. Pour it into him. He handed over the rest of the medicine. Naruto carefully lifted Akamaru's head and unclenched his jaw. The puppy swallowed hard, yelped uncertainly, and licked the girl's hand. Naruto stroked the soft fur with her fingertips. Sorry, I didn't mean to hit you. I apologized to the puppy. But I wanted you. She pursed her lips towards Kiba. He laughed hoarsely, raising his hands. Get well! Only the tip of the light braid waved in the air. An ironing began to fuss around the patient. Her friends greeted her with joyful exclamations. Rock even did a kind of winner's dance around him. You're doing great. Hataki nodded. As always soft, she managed not to kill Kiba. And shared the painkiller with him. Sasuke interjected. You guys have big eyes. Naruto stuck out her tongue and turned her gaze to the scoreboard. Hinata versus Niji? But this is Datebao. She gasped in shock. At the academy, only the blind and deaf did not know that Niji hated Hinata with every fiber of his soul. Not much has changed since release. The same blood flowed in them, their fathers were twin brothers, and only a minute separated Hisashi from the title of head of the clan. Instead, he received the stamp of submission on his forehead and the eternal fear of the tearing pain of punishment. Naruto had a chance to see how members of a side branch of the clan were punished. Kyumo has been licking his lips at the dojutsu of the Hyuga clan for a long time. One day, Their ambassador in the village decided to kidnap the heiress of the clan, Hinata. He organized the kidnapping, which was stopped at the very last moment. The ambassador himself was killed. This threatened a feud, a war between Kumo and Leaf. No evidence was found against them. It was impossible to prove the kidnapping, but the death of an important official. The rest of the participants in the diplomatic mission demanded the death of the current head of the clan. So similar to his brother, Niji's father replaced him with himself and gave his life. He maintained peace between the villages and the well-being of his family. Although it is unlikely that Niji himself knew the details of the case. True, this did not change the fact that Niji was left without a father and received the seal of submission on his forehead. Sometimes Naruto even sympathized with him, although she did not understand how someone could be such a bastard towards sweet, timid Hinata. Despite her clan upbringing, the downtrodden heiress grows up. And now they were pitted against each other, practically forced to fight each other. Genuine interest flashed across the Hokage's face. And Naruto wondered, is the selection of pairs for fights really random? Don't give up, Hinata! Uzumaki leaned over the railing and almost fell out. Show him what you're worth. I believe in you, Datebao. A timid smile, a faint shine in pale eyes. And the real beating that followed. Hinata fought and showed all her skill. She confronted Niji almost on equal terms, dodged, and used the clan style. She even activated her dojutsu. Their movements, harmonious and similar, were amazing. There is no entertainment in fights with the Byakugan. First of all, they are designed for internal damage, and not for external manifestations. But the taijutsu itself is great. Niji almost killed Hinata. At the very last moment he was stopped by the mentors of all Konoha teams. Naruto jumped down and ran up to the fallen girl. Knocked out Tenketsu are not the worst thing. Iraianen will be able to restart Kirakuki. But the moral state made me worry. Yet Niji, chatting during the battle, hit where it hurt most: the Kunoichi's inability to stand up for herself, her modesty. Inexpressiveness, as Hyuga herself believed. Well done! You fought amazingly, Hinata! Naruto stroked the girl's hand. Hyuga smiled and closed her eyes, losing consciousness. The Uzumaki turned sharply towards Niji, rage rising in her chest like a wave. And only endless lessons in self-control from Grandfather Ka helped restrain the famous fiery temperament of her clan. Niji snorted disdainfully. Losers will always remain losers. This is their fate. Fate, you say? Naruto smiled wickedly. After these words, the rage subsided and the girl calmed down. What about your destiny? What is she like? Are you from a side branch of the Hyuga? She said insinuatingly. Yes. Niji drawled, not understanding where she was leading. So you must protect the representatives of the main branch, even at the cost of your own life. Is this your destiny? Yes. It began to dawn on the genius, but it was too late. So why did you almost kill the heiress and thereby go against your fate? Naruto bowed her head, mockingly, sarcastically looking into the pale eyes of the confused guy. Don't worry, Naruto. Rock Lee's warm hand brought long-awaited support. I want to fight Sasuke, and then Niji. Or you will fight him. Together we will avenge Hinata. I agree, Datebao. The girl smiled. Their plans were not destined to come true. Dog no Gara, sand demon of the desert. Neither the speed that increased after removing heavy loads from his legs, nor all the skill of Tai Rock Lee helped against him. Absolute sand protection. And the same absolute hatred, rolling through the arena in waves. As he began to pound Lee's back, Naruto for a moment, just a second, released a tiny bit of Kyuubi's demonic chakra. Gaara spun around with a predatory expression on his face as he slid through the ranks of genin, searching for the source of power. The reason for your hatred. Kurama explained that Shikaku, his younger brother, always hated power. And he only respected her. Gaara sniffed air like a bloodhound, trying to detect his enemy. Other inhuman, bestial features appeared in the features of his face. And he himself was no longer human. Demon, outside and inside. Fear gripped my insides with an icy palm and slid into my stomach like a slimy snake. If her seal weren't so strong, if she hadn't become friends with the Kyuubi, she would have suffered the same fate. A semi-intelligent weapon of the village, whose body is tightly intertwined with the demon's aura, with its energy. So dense that they cannot exist without each other. Only now did Naruto realize with horror what Kurama was trying to warn her about. Shikaka has no restrictions, his cage is Gaara's entire body, his only prison and boundaries. Gaara's mind is Shikaka's mind and vice versa. A strong symbiosis where each member suffers from the presence of the other. A raccoon only knows how to hate and does not know how to love at all. They didn't teach him. So he does what he does best, said a voice inside. You're unstable again, he answered the silent question. Apparently, the boy was too small when the bijou was sealed into him. Ask the painted one, there he is, wiping himself off next to him. He liked you. Naruto mentally growled at the amused demon, but obediently turned to Kankuro. For Kyuubi, what is happening is just toys, but for her it is a terrible reality in which Lee has already used the lotus. A painful technique that broke the body of a shinobi. But the lotus always blooms twice. Tell me. She approached Kankuro. Sasuke glanced sideways, silently guarding. Was Gaara a demon since childhood? She didn't know how else to formulate the question so as not to give herself away. Yes. The puppeteer nodded readily. He became one in the womb. His semi-intelligent sand protected him from the cradle. And he killed everyone who approached him. He enjoyed the Uzumaki's horror. And Naruto couldn't come to her senses. From the womb, Gaara was changed even before birth, Shikaka was infused into him. For what? How could an embryo that does not yet have will and intelligence become a full-fledged Jinchuriki? So the demon worked on him. Lee! Her voice rang over the arena along with the crunch of bones. Gaara crushed his opponent's arm and leg. After the opening of the Gate of Pain, the battle was ended by the victory of the hermit. Guy himself interrupted him, admitting his student's defeat. Naruto rushed to her friend and helped put him on the stretcher. Kurama, please, can I help him? She screamed. Her voice echoed across the water. The fox in the cage winced and twitched his ear. There is only one call that can restore the boy's damaged nervous system. Slug Katsuyu. Summoning Tsunade Senju. Naruto finished doomedly. It was as if someone had run a soft tail across his cheek. Don't you dare cry, Vessel! The fox barked displeasedly. Uzumaki, don't give up. For what? She asked Gaara walking past with just her lips. You're not bad, Daibeo. She whispered furiously. The guy's face showed confusion, almost despair. He quickly turned away and left. Naruto watched as Lee was carried away. Together with Guy, I listened to Irenen's verdict. I couldn't believe that Rock Lee wouldn't be able to fight anymore. Becoming a shinobi had been his cherished dream since childhood. He worked towards it, overcoming everything in his path. Is it really going to end like this? Will he really remain disabled for the rest of his life? A Senju princess skin showed not only broken bones in her arm and leg, but also shrapnel embedded in her spinal cord. It's amazing how Lee was able to get to his feet with such injuries. He must have been in terrible pain. The rest of the qualifying round passed for her in a blur. Kurama was right, the Uzumaki did not give up, and Naruto mentally was already in her personal library, among the copied scrolls by Tsunade Senju. She was looking for anything that could help get Lee back on her feet. If necessary, she will conclude an agreement with Katsuyu. But he will never leave his friend, never for anything. The Hokage distributed them into pairs, telling each of them the name of his opponent in the first battle of the third stage. And he gave a month to prepare so that the rivals would again not know what to prepare for, because the qualifying tournament allowed them to know each other's strengths. Naruto got Niji, but Sasuke got Gaara's number. When the official part was over, they were sent home so that the genin could find teachers for themselves. Don't worry. He and Sasuke stood aside. My brother will train me. What will you do? I will regain my previous control over chakra. The girl rubbed her stomach. The seal still ached painfully. and I'll make some preparations for the battle. Dobe, just don't kill the idiot. The Uchiha rolled his eyes. Let's look at his behavior, team. Uzumaki chuckled. Kakashi-sensei, you'll train me alone, won't you? Sakura screamed. Hatake agreed doomedly. So these two have been hired. Sasuke was glad that he would not see Haruno in the next month. Sasuke was choked with delight, talking about the qualifying battles and the techniques of his opponents. And that he faced the strongest opponent, Gaara no Dog. Ototo was happy, looking forward to the challenge of his skills. But as soon as he crossed the threshold of the room, he fell asleep exhausted. Itachi only managed to drag the futon onto which his little brother collapsed. The elder carefully covered him with a blanket, closed the door, and went downstairs. Asleep? The father chuckled. Go check on Naruto. His mother handed him the pie. I'm worried about the girl. How is she doing after meeting Orochimaru? And what did he do with her seal? Can a demon break out of her? Fugaku frowned. Itachi bowed briefly and left, deciding to walk thanks to the Sharingan. He could see through the eyes of his clone, if, of course, the bird was at a short distance. And he was struck by the poisonous, burning feeling that appeared in his chest when Naruto threw herself on her brother's neck. At that moment, he felt a murderous desire. He wanted to tear the student away from the Ototo. And he could hardly restrain himself from appearing in person at the qualifying round. He did not change his face, did not betray his condition in any way, continued to sit on the tree, but Shursui said that darkness settled in his eyes at that moment. Only Naruto's simple words were able to cool his rage, her smile, her touch. It was like touching my cheek. At the very beginning of their acquaintance, she often checked the wrinkles on his nose to see if they were real. He remembered how she would sit on his lap and, with an important, concentrated look, begin her research. There are many of them short, precious memories. They are bright, like diamond splashes of water on a sunny day. And almost everyone is related to Naruto. Itachi realized that he no longer remembered his previous life. Before it all merged into an endless series of days. While every day with Uzumaki was special. She helped improve relations with her brother and parents, and mysteriously managed to unite the entire clan. The Uchiha now often held common holidays and knew each other's names. Lively, sincere laughter was increasingly heard in the quarter. A sorceress, not a shinobi, she should be recognized as a yukai, a spirit of the elements or nature. He stopped analyzing his attitude towards her, let everything go as it goes. The time will come when he will understand what the warm feeling that she evokes is called. The main thing is that it is not too late. Hyuga Niji. He was considered the most gifted genin of his class, just like Ototo was in his. A talented shinobi, despite being from a side branch. Itachi suspected that Hayashi, not too happy with his eldest daughter, would happily give her in marriage to Niji in order to preserve the genome, and finally remove all the differences between the main branch and the secondary one. It was with him that Naruto had to fight. But she is more into distance fighting, while Hyuga prefers hard contact. Of course, the girl has good achievements in Tai, but this may not be enough if they don't come up with something urgently. Itachi's path lay past the baths when he noticed a shaggy snow-white tail of unkempt hair. This could only belong to one person, the chief intelligence officer of Konoha, the Toad Sannin. The Uchiha immediately calculated all the options, based on what the Ototo told about Orochimaru. Besides Snake, Jiraiya was the only person who knew Fuinjutsu well enough. Jiraiya-san, Itachi called softly. The man shuddered and looked around. Relief flashed across his face. Oh, it's you, Itachi-kun. Long time no see. How big and strong you have become. Your parents are proud of you. Surely there is no end to brides. The man exclaimed joyfully, looking at the Uchiha from all sides. Itachi smiled thinly. He liked the carefree, easygoing Sannin, although his sometimes excessive carelessness caused a lot of trouble. But it was Jiraiya who at one time continued the lessons of Kushina-san, showing many good seals that the young man planned to show Naruto in due time. By the way, about Naruto. Jiraiya-san, One of my friends may need the help of a ninjutsu expert. Acquaintance? The Sannin perked up, his eyes lit up. Is she beautiful? Itachi's smile became more pronounced. Legends were made about the search for inspiration of the Toad Sannin not only in Konoha, but also in all more or less large cities with baths. Very. Her last name is Uzumaki. Jiraiya turned serious and nodded. In the village, only one person could bear such a surname. He and the Uchiha slowly walked towards the old shinobi dormitories. Itachi slid through the window, leaving the Sannin waiting outside the door. He found Naruto sprawled on the bed. She was clutching a bitten sandwich in one hand and a comb in the other. Hair, damp after the shower, flowed in tangled strands down her back and down to the floor. Itachi lightly stroked his hot shoulder and blew into his ear. Naru, wake up! Wake up! He shook more insistently. The girl reluctantly opened her eyes, found him with a dull gaze and, apparently, did not immediately recognize him. What do you need, Datebao? She yawned and stretched, still not letting go of the sandwich. She looked at him in surprise and turned her gaze to Itachi. Hello? She smiled widely, blowing her bangs out of her eyes. Long time no see. The Uchiha chuckled. Let the guest in, he is waiting at the door. Who? The girl headed towards the exit, straightening her crumpled home dress. Your godfather. To be honest, Itachi was afraid of his friend's reaction. To be an orphan, an outcast, and suddenly find out that somewhere you have a strong godfather who could help, protect, but chose instead to hang around somewhere. Kushina-san would have talked to him a long time ago. Using a frying pan and the Kyuubi's chakra. Naruto just raised an eyebrow. Oh how? That's all. What's on her mind is unclear. Sannin entered the apartment, carefully examining the girl. She, finishing her sandwich as she walked, stomped into the kitchen, muttering something inviting. 15 minutes later there were cups, a teapot and a basket of cookies in front of them. Please help yourself. Itachi said that you are his friend. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. The girl smiled. She washed herself, brought herself back to her senses a little, although there was still a mark from the pillow on her cheek, and she left her hair loose. It was dry and combing it became a real problem. How Itachi understood her. My name is the Great Toad Sage from Mount Myaboku Jiraiya. The Sannin shook his mane. An old pervert who writes dirty books that Kakashi-san reads, Uzumaki concluded. Itachi continued to drink tea, and the Sannin choked with indignation. He blushed and turned pale under the cheerful gaze of blue eyes. Orochimaru somehow changed Naruto's seal. He hastened to intervene. Jiraiya-san, could you please do everything the way it was before? Naruto tensed nearby. She was ready to instantly break loose and run away. To prevent this, Itachi took her hand and began stroking the protruding bone, calming her down. And he marveled to himself at how thin her wrist was. He easily grabbed it with 2 fingers. And at the same time he manages to wield the heaviest Tessen. The Sannin looked intently at their clasped hands and chewed his lips. He clearly did not expect that the girl was aware of her chosenness. For this I need to see the seal. Naruto blushed and stepped back. A difficult childhood left its mark on her, difficulties with trust. Despite her easy disposition, she found it difficult to get along with people. I could chat, have fun, laugh, but to truly trust. And she didn't allow everyone to touch her. It took Itachi more than 1 month to see her true nature behind the mask of a laid-back blonde. Itachi? A raised eyebrow. Naruto. Raised corners of the lips. For some reason, it was his smile that always delighted the girl. I'll be there and won't let anything bad happen. Naruto nodded and went to change clothes. Trust. The seal of concentration, and a spiral appears on the stomach surrounded by intricate seals. And there are several more around. They occupy almost the entire area of the peritoneum. Jiraiya squatted down and touched with his palm, causing the girl to flinch, and only iron self-control kept her in place. Itachi was proud of his student. The Uchiha activated his Sharingan. He knew what the master was seeing. A thin stream of scarlet rage flows into Naruto's blue calm. Or not quite rage? Itachi frowned. He did not feel the demon's anger at all, his presence yes, but there was no hatred that had previously reigned in his energy. More like excitement, anticipation, and something else. It's difficult to figure it out, especially if there's no censor. That's it. The Sannin understood. Your seals are double. Even if the demon's energy breaks the first boundary, the second will allow it to dissolve into your chakra. They are both even. But there's an odd seal on top that breaks your control. Now, just a minute. He hit the seal with a flourish. The girl exhaled sharply and closed her eyes. The scarlet thread began to disappear from the blue sky, and the background became even. Itachi sighed calmly. Toad infection. Ruined all the fun. And why did the new seal bother him? It's not that Kyuubi was angry, but he couldn't help but scold the hermit. Thank you, Jiraiya-san, Datebao. You helped me a lot. Naruto bowed, impersonally, like a real Heim. Itachi understood. She would not say, she would remain silent about the fact that she knew the status of a Sannin. He won't let you into your life. They drank some more tea, chatted, and then Jiraiya ran off in search of inspiration. Don't be offended by him, Naru. He was sent away immediately after your parents died. He hugged her and pressed her to him. Her shoulders were shaking, and her eyes were dry and lifeless. Throughout her childhood, Naruto dreamed of such a person who would come and drive away her offenders. And so he, the godfather, didn't even want to get to know her better. It's not easy for him either. He loved both Kushina and Minato. Was waiting for you. The third forbade him and Tsunade to take custody of you. Give him time to get used to it, you'll see, Jiraiya-san is not a bad person. Only strange. And perverted. Naruto chuckled. His books alone are worth it. You read? Itachi was surprised. I looked in once. Uzumaki winced. The first ones are still okay, but the rest, too much love and little meaning. Can you help me comb my hair? She turned her back. With pleasure. With a light heart, Itachi plunged his hands into the heavy, silky wealth. The month of preparation flew by. Naruto came up with a plan of action against Neji. As Itachi had predicted, Ero-Sannin had gotten used to the idea of having such an adult goddaughter. They began to walk together. Jiraiya knew many interesting and instructive stories, and most importantly, he knew how to tell them. Naruto listened, remembered, and even adopted some of them. She especially liked the description of the adventures of the then young Sannins. How Tsunade drove her godfather. Jiraiya, in response to the cheerful laughter, blushed and muttered something under his breath. When he invited the girl to sign a contract with the Toads, Naruto still refused. It wasn't her, she didn't feel any kinship with them, and she didn't yet have enough determination to freely call. Fortunately, her godfather was not offended and said that she was acting very wisely for her age. Not like some drunk grannies. Nothing could be found for Lee. In a month, the girl read more works on medicine than in her entire previous life. At night she visited the patient, examined him again and again, scanned him, took tests and made her way into the hospital laboratory. True, she had to make such raids while certain doctors were on duty, who treated her better than others. Nothing worked. It turned out that it was necessary to fish out fragments from the spine, heal damage, monitor the heartbeat, and control the chakra circulation system. And all this at the same time. One doctor simply does not have enough hands and energy, and there were few Irenans of at least Class B. And Kabuto, on whom great hopes were pinned, disappeared somewhere. The medic simply disappeared, as if he did not exist. Naruto climbed up the wall again, and into the open window of Lee's room. The nurse was talking very loudly to herself near the bushes where the girl was sitting. She was angry with a disobedient patient who drags himself into the yard for training and collapses there. Well, is this really the case? Naruto brought him homemade vitamins and some stimulants. She also carefully developed the damage and did not allow it to encapsulate. Slowly so as not to cause harm. Uzumaki was aware of the lack of education, skills, and abilities, so she did not touch the spine itself, focusing on the areas around it, the arm and leg. But looking into Lee's eyes, seeing hope in them, and knowing that you can't live up to it, it hurts. This is probably why she walked at night when the patient was sleeping. I left him his favorite fruits and wildflowers, fresh every time. Today someone was standing by Lee's bed. Naruto heard the rustling of sand on the walls and recognized short red hair. The fan flew into his hand and the whirlwind threw Gaara against the wall. "What do you want to do with Lee?" she asked quietly, although it was not possible to wake up her friend, pumped up with sleeping pills. "I came to kill him," the hermit remarked callously. "Why, Date Bayo? Even in the womb, I was infused with a desert demon named Shikaku, the incarnation of a monk from our village, whose spirit was imprisoned in a special vessel." Gaara looked past her, the sand swirling and intertwining around. "He brought madness into my mind. I have problems with emotions. And my father abandoned the plan to make a weapon out of me. He abandoned the plan that destroyed my mother and me." The guy was trembling, clutching the hem of his clothes. "I'm no longer needed. Tell me, how can you live without a goal in life?" He is connected to Shikaku, connected by unbreakable threads. And the worst thing is that he realizes that not everything is in order, that his mind is damaged. But he can't help it. And I realized that my goal would be what I was created for. Murder. After all, people are afraid of those who are stronger than them. And as long as such shinobi exist, as long as they need to be killed, that means I will exist. I will become Hokage. And you will recognize me. She also wanted to find her place in life, a purpose for which she could exist. She had grandparents, friends, comrades. For many years now she has lived only for their sake, to help those who are dear to her. Gaara doesn't have that. Naruto walked over slowly and carefully took his hand. "Any shinobi is a weapon. But I'm sure this is not the life our parents would have wanted for us. My mother would like me to study techniques, especially ninjutsu, not to borrow, to save money after each mission. Don't always listen to Jiraiya, Date Bayo." The girl smiled weakly. "And yours?" She brushed the strands away from the tattoo on her forehead. "You can't put such a hieroglyph if you don't love a person and don't wish him happiness." The black-rimmed eyes widened, Gaara wheezed, grabbed his head and ran away. Naruto grabbed the rails of the hospital bed, her spine relaxing a little. The tension subsided. Didn't break, didn't kill. So maybe there is still hope? From the very evening, noble guests began to arrive in the village. The daimyo's confidants, the Kazekage and his bodyguards, many famous shinobi and simply important people. Bright caravans stretched along the roads, gathering crowds of people. The battles were traditionally held at a specially equipped training ground. A large arena with trees, bushes and small protruding rocks. Above it were stands, and separately there was a box for special guests. The Uchiha took a place not far from the head of the Hyuga, who came with his youngest daughter Hanabi. Fugaku bowed sedately to his fellow leader while Mikoto settled into the seat, taking her husband and son's place. Itachi, as the heir, stood behind his father's shoulder like a silent statue, and saw Hayashi's appraising glances. For a long time already, a man had proposed to the clans to become related, but Fugaku always refused, not wanting to interrupt his genome with a weaker dojutsu. And Kagami Uchiha, with his fox-like agility and devilish cunning, should not be written off. This is what he declared, appearing next to the head of the clan and ceremoniously bowing to him. An indifferent sure sway followed behind him. Finally, the ceremony ended and they took their places. The genin entered the arena. Itachi saw a proud Ototo in a dark uniform with the mon of the Uchiha clan on his back. Naruto stayed nearby, short, slender, with a thick golden braid and a fan behind her back, in a simple blue dress that reached her knees. She smiled absently as she listened to Shiranu Ginma. Her fight was first in line. Itachi clenched his fists. For good luck. For Naruto. He heard discussions about the strongest genin, about his abilities. I saw how the head of the Hyuga clan became more dignified. Itachi clenched his teeth, remaining outwardly calm. He must believe in Naruto. Must support her, he promised. The rivals began to test each other with tentative blows. Neji blocked a couple of points in Naruto's body, for which he immediately received a heavy fan on the shoulder. The touch is casual, but it is also quite painful if you know how to hit. Naruto knew. They moved quickly one after another. Neji tried to touch Uzumaki, she slipped away, throwing him away with waves of wind. Finally, Hyuga had enough of this and rushed forward, attacking. With a pop, the area was filled with blondes in blue sundresses. Neji was confused by so many opponents working at the same time, and Itachi, with the help of his Sharingan, saw how the real Naruto slid first to one side of the platform, then to the other. There was no system at all in her movements. She barely managed to escape from the second point when Neji dealt with all the clones. And he attacked. The girl managed to block several blows, and even responded a couple of times, for which she had to throw a Tenzin. But she was not as strong in taijutsu as her opponent. Itachi saw her pain, her biting her lip. She flew towards the walls, but rose up every time. Again and again. The fight turned into pure beating. Your fate is to lose to me, Hyuga hissed, taking his stance again. Naruto wiped the blood from her lips. Do you think so, Datebao? It doesn't matter to me whether it's victory or defeat. Yes, of course I want to win, but most of all I need to avenge Hinata. She did not fight for the sake of victory, not for the title of Chunin. She fought for your respect, and you humiliated her so much, Datebao. Naruto straightened up and put her hand in the pocket of her dress. Neji became wary. This is what I can't forgive you for. The scroll unfolded and kunai flew at the guy. With a whirlwind movement, he created a dome that repulsed all the shells. But isn't this a clan technique known only to the main branch? However, this didn't bother Naruto much. She closed the fan and carefully placed it under her feet. And then she rushed at Neji with a kunai. So silly! Hayashi Hyuga commented on her actions, addressing mainly his daughter Hanabi, but looking at the Uchiha out of the corner of his eye. Itachi bit his lip until it bled. It's good that Shursui was covering him from the side. Neji used the 64 touch technique against Naruto. His heart sank when he saw his little girl being beaten. She screamed helplessly and tried to run to the side, but Neji always caught up with her. And he hit again. The stands and spectators disappeared, their screams disappeared. There was no father and mother. Itachi's entire world shrank to a tiny bright point, a piece of land on which Naruto was beaten. Narrowed to collapse. In his red and black world of Tsukiyami, the sun finally rose. But he, a fool, didn't notice it right away. If he didn't have the Mangekyo Sharingan, he would have awakened it now. Because there, in the arena, the person dearest to him suffered. Itachi? Shursui touched his white knuckles. The Mangekyo Sharingan looked at him and plunged him into illusion. I love her, Itachi answered simply. And disappeared. Shursui chuckled and shook his head. It took a long time for you to understand. Sasuke will be happy. And he slipped out after him. A split second was enough for them, no one noticed the red eyes. And Itachi again stared at the arena where Naruto was taking the final blows. Now he was collected cool. He knew what he wanted to achieve. Naruto should be his. He will not give it to any other lucky person. This is only his son, personal, only for his world. All Uchiha were owners, this quality boiled in their blood. But only now Itachi realized his strength and power. Naruto should belong to him, of his own free will. And nothing else. Are you giving up? Meanwhile, Neji Hyuga asked. And he received a blow to the stomach with a heavy Tenzin at the moment, when he was weakened by the technique he had just performed, and flew into the crater that he created with his rotation. And bluish barrier walls were erected around him. Only now did he notice that Naruto was standing on the scroll with one foot. Only now did I understand the insidiousness of her plan. Itachi was proud of his girl. Naruto used numerous distractions to place kunai with prepared seals in the arena, the basis for the barrier, its four corners. She placed the scroll in advance and sealed the chakra in it also while Niji was fighting the shadow clones. All that remained was to lure Hyuga to the calculated point and lock him up. I had to sacrifice my chakra circulation system, but it worked. In the intervals between the last blows, while there was still energy left, the girl transferred the chakra needed for the push into the scroll, which into the kunai. A small pebble can cause an entire avalanche. The preparation in the scroll led to the simultaneous activation of all the others. Not a single four-sided barrier, but four identical walls, pushed in a certain direction, a scroll of lid on top. Real Fuin, a long-forgotten art. Amazing! Said Kagami Uchiha. If she had made a mistake even by a hand, taken an extra step, she would have ended up inside the barrier with Niji. If she had put the scroll in the wrong place, the system would not have worked. Amazing plan. And amazing barrier techniques. The father immediately calculated the benefit. The Uchiha present chuckled contentedly. Hyuga glanced at them irritably. And Naruto fell on her back, arms outstretched. Itachi saw her happy smile and sparkling eyes. Are you alive there? Shiraniganma asked, not at all like a judge. Yeah, Datebao. The girl finally stood up, leaning on the Tessen. She sat down, crossed her legs, and made a seal of concentration. I'll come to my senses now. Niji tried to get out of the barrier, hit him with chakra, screamed, but the walls did not even think of falling. Uzumaki did not skimp on preparing more energy. And the color of the barrier. Itachi remembered that to destroy such a Fuin, chakra of the same element as that of the creator is required. That is, in this case, water and wind. The veins bulged, the Byakugan began to work, and the guy recoiled when a furious chakra flame flared up inside the girl's body, angry, oppressive. As a doctor, Naruto did not know how to correct the consequences of knocked out Tenketsu, but she could restart her own system with the help of Kyuubi's chakra. And when did you first learn? Itachi realized that he had a lot of questions for the last representative of the Uzumaki clan. The story told by Niji amazed and made the stands erupt in bewilderment, indignation, and sympathy. And Naruto answered in her favorite manner. You are not special, Niji, and you never have been. The world is full of people who are also unlucky in life, they have lost everything. And which are different from the rest. She pressed her hand to her stomach for a moment. And if you think that the fate of all people is the same death, why are you fighting, Datebao? I fight because I know, only I myself determine what my future will be like. The whirlwinds of chakra swirling around her died down and disappeared in her stomach. The girl approached the barrier and began to make seals, first against one wall, then against the other. Third, fourth, and scroll. If it had been a single technique, it would have been much easier, but as it was, she had to repeat everything again 5 times. The seals on the kunai flared and the scroll began to smoke. The barrier seal appeared and Niji's crater was in the very center of the intersecting lines. The walls turned from blue to orange. What are you up to? I'm making changes to the seal, Naruto said absently. Don't interfere. She waved him off. After a couple of minutes, Niji began to sag. He was breathing heavily, shallowly. Sweat rolled down his forehead, staining the curse seal from which he had pulled off the bandage earlier. What happened with me? The chakra has stopped transmitting oxygen, you will soon suffocate. Uzumaki shrugged, again conjuring the seals. When the enemy lost consciousness, the barrier fell. She looked up at the judge. I won, Datebao. Shiraniganma, having chewed the senban, was forced to recognize Niji as a loser. Hyuga was lying on a bed in the infirmary at the arena, and the Irionans diagnosed him with exhaustion. Fortunately, no internal organs were affected, and the seal did not harm the body. It has been a long time since anyone has encountered the art of the Uzumaki. Doctors have forgotten the influence of their techniques. A hot hand lay on his forehead. Niji was amazed to find his former rival next to him. She smiled warmly, sending him medical chakra. And what is my habit of helping all defeated opponents? She asked, winking at him. Niji closed his eyes for a moment. Do you really think that you can decide your fate yourself? Even in the Hyuga clan? Yeah, Datebao. Naruto removed her hand, and for a second the guy wanted to return it to its place. He fought an incomprehensible desire. And the girl looked out the window, behind which two birds were freely soaring. Did you see that orange energy that I used? Hyuga nodded. She prescribed me only one path, a weapon, preferably a blunt and silent one. Ready for anything. But I want to become the main Ironin, and I will achieve this. I'm sure. Neji smiled. It will be so. He grabbed her hand and slapped it loudly on his forehead. Naruto giggled, then stood up. The guy raised his eyebrows in surprise. They came to you. I'll leave you alone. Get well. The girl left, letting Hayashi Hyuga pass ahead. Neji tensed. Judging by the head's face, this will be a difficult conversation. For the sake of greater entertainment, the battles were swapped. Sasuke was moved to the bottom of the list, which the Uchiha was angry about in his deadpan manner. It's okay, you won't have time to blink an eye before the others finish. Naruto reassured him. But you have time to check if everything is in place, Datebao. The Uchiha nodded, his gaze becoming empty. He recalled and listed the places and the stashes that were stored in them. For the tournament, Naruto prepared explosion seals especially for him, seals for storing weapons, and even sealed several fireballs. To be honest, her first such experience, so the Uchiha decided that she would use them only as a last resort. Kankuro abandoned his fight, and Shikamaru won with lazy genius, but gave up the victory in favor of Temari. And now it was Sasuke's turn. Good luck, team! Thank you, Dobe! From the first minute, Sasuke didn't like Gaara. He muttered something and asked someone for forgiveness. And then the sand attacked him. The Uchiha dodged and with a smile used the entire arsenal copied from Lee. It will definitely be necessary to help Naruto look for treatment for him. Such a taijutsu master and comrade should not disappear. Damn it, all her influence. He already has friends outside the clan. His speed was inferior to Lee's, but Sasuke had his own advantage, the Sharingan, a powerful copying technique. He began to cut circles around Gaara, entangling him in his favorite fishing line, and quickly attached an explosion seal to the pumpkin from behind. The hermit didn't even notice. He jumped up from the front, hit him in the stomach with his knee, and hit him in the ribs with his hand. And he jumped back when the sand rushed to protect him. He formed an impenetrable ball around Gaara, dense, hard. All the blows were absorbed in him. He changed, tried to impale the Uchiha on spikes, not allowing him to reach Gaara, who was locked inside. Okay, as Kagami-san says, there is no trick against a crowbar. True, he attributed this to the Dobe's stubbornness. Sure Sway, with Itachi's kick, showed him a new technique. However, he did not have time to really work it out. The acceleration was still too high, but so far he could not think of anything else. Flying up onto the wall, he rushed down at speed. The wind whistled in my ears, 1,000 birds sang in my hand. Chidori is a powerful Sharingan technique for striking in the forehead. Lightning pierced the sand, almost reached Gaara's face and went out. The sand again covered its carrier, who was making some kind of seals, although Sasuke had already achieved his goal. The thin fishing line with which he wrapped Gaara at the beginning of the fight went inside the cocoon, and it affected the explosion seal. While there is no chakra in it, the sand did not notice it, which means it only has one try. Sasuke directed the energy along the thread. The explosion scattered the sand, threw back the taken-aback deserter, and almost carried away the stunned Uchiha in a wave. He was right in deciding to hold off on the Dobe seals. She, as always, overdid it and invested too much chakra. Or was it she who cared about him so much? I wish I could stay alive with such care. Sasuke glanced at his friend. She looked a little unhappy. He read his lips. I overdid it a little, Datebao. Overdid it? Well, he'll arrange it for her later. The explosion seemed to serve as a signal. The stands fell asleep. The Kazekage grabbed the Hokage and soared to the roof of a nearby building, where 4 incomprehensible individuals set up a powerful fire barrier. Another distant explosion, noise and screams. A guide from Suna jumped into the arena. What's happening? Sasuke looked around. His parents, brother, Shisui and Kagami-san, in the company of Kakashi and Guy, were already fighting with unfamiliar individuals with a sound protector. Genma landed next to Sasuke and fought off the kunai thrown by the son of Ite. Meanwhile, the Kazekage's children picked up their brother, who had lost consciousness from the explosion, and rushed off somewhere. As soon as he restores his chakra, the plan will continue. The hermit smiled. And he wheezed, the kunai pierced his throat. The Uchihas descended onto the arena. Naruto ran up out of breath. Training with Itachi was beneficial. Now the Genjutsu was not so easy to defeat her. Sasuke, catch up with Gaara, you need to intercept him. The father commanded. Kagami-san, Mikoto, you will take care of the snakes at the border of the village. He nodded towards where the smoke was coming from. Naruto, help us break the barrier around the Hokage. Itachi, Shisui, you are with me. I obey. They responded at the same time and rushed in all directions. Behind the barrier, wearing the Kazekage robe, stood Orochimaru. As soon as the Uchiha landed, the Hokage's people rushed towards them. Can you remove the barrier? No, but the Fuinjutsu master is with us. Fugaku pointed at Naruto. She was already crawling around one of the fiery walls with all her might, hissing something under her breath. And then she took out a book and began hastily flipping through the pages. Naruto? Itachi inquired cautiously. I've never done anything like this, but my grandmother was interested in not only creating, but also breaking various seals, she said, her eyes running over the lines and comparing the drawings. The thin-looking book contained several volumes. Another Fuin of the legendary clan. Without this you cannot become a master. Kuku, Naruto-chan, do you really want to break my barrier? Snake grinned. Welcome. I have a surprise for you. Wooden closed sarcophagi began to appear from the roof. And only the third managed to stop the Hokage. Men in ancient armor emerged from the first two. Hashirama-san and Tobirama-san. Shisui gasped behind the girl's back. Itachi didn't take his eyes off the blonde braid. Sarutobi glanced sideways at the not-at-all surprised girl, who did not even take her eyes off the book. Forgive me, Naruto. She chuckled and shrugged. It's stupid to apologize for something you don't regret, old man. Is not it? There was a bitter wrinkle at the lips, which Itachi wanted to smooth out with his fingers. No one was rushing Uzumaki, but everyone present understood that time was running out. Soon the first and second rulers of the village will come to their senses and will be able to fight at full strength. And then things will not go well for the third and the entire leaf. Hooray, I found it, Date Bayo. Naruto quickly read the open page. I will not remove the barrier, not with my level of knowledge. But I can let people in. And I will need volunteers to help. The Hokage's men stepped forward. They correctly calculated the Uchiha, with the clan Dojutsu, are the best fighters in Konoha. They will be able, if not to win, then to successfully detain the revived Hokage. With symbols drawn on their palms, all three stood at one of the walls of the barrier at an equal distance. On my command we begin! Naruto quickly put together seals, several of which were non-classical. Truly a burglar. Let's! All three put their palms together, and a rectangular opening formed in front of the girl, into which three Uchiha immediately dived. Itachi glanced briefly at Uzumaki, regretting that he couldn't even call her by name so as not to put her in danger. Understanding dawned on her face and she nodded. All three walked away, the girl's hands were smoking, and there was a smell of burnt skin. Naruto. The Hokage could not find words. It's okay, everything will heal, just like on a dog. She chuckled. I'm for Sasuke. He can't have all the fun alone, Date Bayo. The Uchiha clan has preserved ancient chronicles that belong to Madara Uchiha. In them he described clan wars and his struggle for a place in the sun, and also his strongest opponents. But Itachi never thought that he would have the opportunity to fight the revived Hokage. He took on the second, as the only one who owns the water element. And even though his skill was small, It was enough to dodge, block blows, or survive in the depths of the techniques where the dead man regularly dragged him. He was almost carried away by walls of water and sucked into a whirlpool, but each time Itachi returned, managing to react at the last moment. He evaporated the water with fire, and at the end immersed the second's consciousness into Tsukiyemi. Itachi knew how much he was risking, freezing like this, motionless, in the middle of the battlefield, but it seemed impossible to pull off other techniques. Shursui did exactly the same thing when he and Fugaku got tired of burning powerful tree shoots and parrying the first powerful blows. Both geniuses froze, not releasing their opponents from their snares. The elder Uchiha ensured their safety. Orochimaru took over the third. But even he could not resist the increased strength of his student. Therefore, he resorted to the last resort in any battle, the call of the god of death. Shinigami could defeat an entire army, but he also took a great price for his help. The second one resisted and struggled. Itachi was forced to cast genjutsu over and over again until the Hokage's consciousness won out. He slipped out of the trap and rushed forward. Itachi took the blow of the sword with his blade and threw out the shuriken. Shursui fell exhausted to the side, defeated by the first. The founders of the village were amazing. It was not for nothing that they were considered the strongest warriors in the shinobi world. Itachi fell to his knees, breathing hoarsely. The channels leading to the eyes pulsated, blazed with fire, and blood flowed down the cheeks. My father was immediately nearby, helped me get up, and gave me stimulants. An icy wind blew, and it was as if the abyss had opened up behind me. Shinigami fulfilled his part of the agreement with Sarutobi. He took the souls of the first and second Hokage and absorbed them, thereby destroying the two clones. A ghostly hand with scarlet beads had already reached out for the soul of Orochimaru, who was being squeezed with all his might by Sarutobi, when the serpent summoned his sword. The glowing blade was intercepted by Itachi at the last moment, and stuck into the chakra-soaked tree left over from the first Hokage. The Sannin hissed as Fugaku fed his chakra to Sarutobi. The Uchiha were not experts in medical techniques. They were only sufficient for such a simple transfer of chakra to support the strength of the third so that he can finish what he started. Even Orochimaru is powerless against Shinigami. The deity pulled out and absorbed his soul. The Uchiha watched as the third's body settled on the roof with a burnt wound on his chest. There was no time to rest. After Orochimaru's death, the barrier fell down. Itachi, Shursui, you are for Naruto and Sasuke. The father nodded understandingly. I will deal with the unrest in the village. Itachi nodded gratefully and began to run. Shursui rushed to Kakashi with a shunshin, and begged him for ninja dogs. They got the sad Pakin, who, it turns out, had already brought Naruto and company to the goal and disappeared. The Uchiha jumped through the trees almost without looking where he was stepping. He was driven forward by a single thought: Naruto, Naruto, Naruto. His heart, his mind, everything began to scream in agony. Naruto, Naruto, Naruto. His personal whirlpool, the sun of his world, Tsukiyemi. Naruto was late. When she rushed, Gaara had almost taken the form of a raccoon demon, was covered in scorch marks from explosion seals and fireballs and half with Chidori, and Sasuke was lying exhausted on the ground, bleeding. Well, what should I do with you, team? The girl asked with a sigh, healing the deepest wounds, while Sakura, tagged along with her, bandaged the rest. Understand and forgive, Dobe. The friend smiled faintly. Let's return home, and I will forgive you. So I'll forgive you, you won't forget a century, date bail. And I you for the seals? Naruto managed to blush slightly. Well, yes, I miscalculated a little. Keep an eye on him, she said to Sakura. Towering above them was a huge beige demon, completely covered in tattoos, with yellow pupils against a background of absolutely black whites under heavy brow ridges. All her clones are not enough to defeat him. Gaara slept, stuck in his sand, dreamless, tossing about like a soulless, lifeless doll. Symbiosis. Kurama in the inner world looked gloomily at the emerging carrier. The tails wriggled and danced. Can you repeat it? She asked tiredly. Even she was exhausted by the battle with Niji, the staging, changing and breaking seals, the chase, the treatment. The eyelids became heavy, the skin tightened like a mask. No more than 4 tails, Kurama growled. Otherwise you will dissolve in me. I have to save Sasuke and Sakura. And Gaara, the rest doesn't matter. Naruto sank onto the water. Shikaku tried to hack my mind and sent Gaara's memories of the past, of his childhood. This is terrible, Kurama. It shouldn't be like this, Date Bayo. Did they treat you differently? Fox bowed his head. It doesn't matter anymore. I have Uchiha, I have you. You are my family. The fox paused, then turned up his nose. And don't think that I'll get emotional here and allow you anything. You're just an arrogant, snotty girl. Give me your seat. Naruto laughed loudly. The orange whirlwinds turned scarlet, rising higher and higher, creating a dark figure in the very center. Pointed long ears, paws with claws, 9 fluffy tails. A 9-tailed demon fox towered over the forest. His heavy aura and fiery chakra spread around in waves, moving trees, knocking down leaves. So the circles come from a stone thrown into the water. Sasuke stared open-mouthed at what Naruto had become. Will she be able to return? Kyuubi! The raccoon roared and hit itself in the stomach. A cloud of air burst out of his mouth and rushed towards the enemy at great speed. The fox jumped over him. Despite his full physical shape, he had exactly 4 tails of strength left. Not little, but not much compared to full power. And inside, near the cage, a girl was sleeping, lost in her consciousness. Kurama tried not to let the waves disturb her. He rushed forward, jumped over another air bullet, spat fire back, and while Shikaku swung him off, wrapped all his tails around his thick body like a whip. And he showered the guy sleeping on his forehead with his burning rage. Shikaku howled, Gaara's technique was interrupted, and he woke up. But Kurama had also exhausted his strength, so it was Naruto who delivered the final blow. In flight. She opened the confines, grabbed the hermit by the collar, and somehow managed to land with the war's burden. Silly! She spoke out. I could have found friends long ago if I had looked around more carefully. People are drawn to you, but you push them away. Date Bayo. My friends helped me overcome loneliness. And I will protect them at all costs. She fainted when she heard Sakura and Sasuke land nearby. Naruto's path could be traced even without the dog. Shikamaru and Asuma with a group of sound ninjas, Shino in the wreckage of the Kankuro doll. A huge 9-tailed fox towering over the forest. And a girl flying on a fan, clutching in her hands a former enemy, whom she nevertheless managed to save. Itachi picked her up from the ground, pressed her to him, and they set off on their way back. She is nearby, her heart beats near his. She is sleeping and smiling at something in her sleep. His soul calmed down again, he easily breathed in the fresh forest air, carrying notes of burning and sand. She's nearby. Everything is as it should be. Everything is correct.